Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. In Hollywood this evening, our two distinguished stars are the lovely actress Margot and the polished young actor from Holland, Mr. Philip Dorn. A story by John Dickson Carr dealing with strange, very strange happenings aboard an ocean liner and called Cabin B-13 is tonight's tale of Suspense. If you have been with us before, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation, and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. And so with Cabin B-13, and with the performances of Margot as Anne Brewster and Philip Dorn as Dr. Karl Heinrich, we again hope to keep you in suspense. Come now, in happier peacetime days, to a great ocean liner on the night of her departure for Europe. There she is at the West 22nd Street Pier, the 25,000-ton Moravania of the White Planet Line. Smoke from her three funnels coils up lazily in mild October air. You can see the decks, white and shiny like shoeboxes, and the string of lights along them, and the band standing by on A deck to play her out. You can hear the murmur of an excited crowd and the rattle of the steam winches as cargo is lowered into the hold. You can see the bustle of activity and the second officer standing at the head of the gangplank as two rather late passengers hurry through the customs shed towards that gangplank.
It's all right, Ricky. We are not too late.
No, and I thought we'd be in time.
A honeymoon in Europe. 3 whole months with nothing to worry about.
That's right, dear. And you've been my wife for, let's see, practically 5 hours now.
I believe the correct phrase is, it was so sudden, Mr. Brewster.
So sudden that we have to travel on our own passports instead of a husband and wife one. I hope they don't think you're not an honest woman.
I'm going to act like a complete wanton just to devil you. Oh, what about our tickets, Ricky? Do we give them to that officer standing at the top of the gangplank?
No, honey, you keep your ticket. The cabin steward will come around and collect it after we're underway.
And the money, Ricky?
It's a lot of money, Anne. $10,000 in cash. Maybe I better turn it in at the purser's office for safekeeping.
Yes, maybe you had. Wait a minute, Ricky.
What is it, then?
Wait. Do you mind if we stand here for a second before we go up the gangplank?
Oh, what's the matter? You're not ill, are you?
No, but getting over brain fever isn't any joke.
Oh, I know, dear.
You see, Ricky, I ought to be eager and excited like all those people up there, but suddenly you get fancies. Queer, sick fancies. Suddenly, right now, all I can think of is the night and the wind and all the black water in the dark.
And that's exactly the kind of morbid fancy I'm trying to cure you of.
I know, Ricky. I'll be good, but I was just thinking of a story.
What story?
Oh, never mind. It doesn't matter. Which way do we go?
Up the gangplank, through that door there, and then down on the elevator to B deck. And no more horrors, do you understand? Here we are, Anne. B deck and cabin number... Good Lord. B-13.
B-13.
You're not superstitious, are you?
Why, no, dear. Not about things like that. Open the door.
Here we are. Lights on and...
Oh, Ricky, darling. It's a beautiful cabin.
Well, best I could get. Well, they've got our luggage in anyway, and... Over there, madam, you'll find a basket of fruit and some books from your obedient servant.
Oh, you are nice to me. And I'm feeling so much better, Ricky. I will be all right, darling.
Of course you will. But you won't find any detective novels among those books.
Please, Ricky.
Detective novels may be all right for presidents and college professors, but they're straight poison to you. You'll read love stories and like it.
You know, Ricky, I keep thinking and thinking about that story I mentioned.
Oh, what story, dear?
It's an old one. You probably know it, but it was new to me. A woman and her daughter arrive in Paris and go to a hotel.
Oh, you mean the old Paris exposition story?
Yes, that's it. The daughter goes out. When she returns, her mother has disappeared. And even the hotel room isn't the same. The proprietor of the hotel swears the girl came there alone and that there never was a mother. The whole room is different when she goes back to look at it. The girl goes to the police, and they won't believe her, and she's nearly crazy. Of course, it turns out that the mother has caught bubonic plague and died, and they're hushing it up so that the visitors won't keep away from the city and ruin the whole exposition,
Anne,
but...
You've got to stop this kind of talk.
I know. But imagine being in a situation like that, with all those queer eyes staring at you, wondering if you'd lost your reason, wondering if your brain had cracked and the whole world might dissolve, and... Listen.
That's the last call, Anne. We'll be underway any minute now.
You know, Ricky, I would like to see the skyline go past and the Statue of Liberty and the rest of it.
Oh, then why not go up and see it? I've got to deposit this money in the purser's office on C-Deck.
But I don't like you to leave me.
Oh, now look here, dear. You don't think I'm going to disappear, do you?
I suppose I don't really. When I get these ideas, and I can't help it, Ricky, I wish you'd wallop me.
Well, I'm not going to wallop you, Anne, but you've got to stop being afraid. You certainly won't disappear in a crowded ship with any number of people all around you. And as for me, I defy Houdini himself to make me vanish.
Don't talk like that.
I'm not going to vanish, and neither is this cabin, dear. Now, run along. I'll join you on deck as soon as I can.
All right, Ricky. I'll be good.
In with your gangplank! In with your gangplank! Gangplank, please, sir. Close the rails. Stand by.
Eager people, excited people, happy people, all crowding up to the rail to wave goodbye. Nothing to worry about, nothing on their minds except...
Except what?
Oh,
Except seasickness, madam?
oh,
Oh, I beg your pardon. I hadn't meant to startle you, believe me.
please don't mention it. How silly of me. It was my fault. I haven't been very well.
I noticed it, madam, if you'll forgive me. That was why I spoke to you. As you see by my uniform, I'm the ship's doctor.
This is a British ship, isn't it? But you don't sound British.
No, I'm an Austrian, madam. Dr. Paul Heinrich, at your service. I'm not very popular in my own country today. Days of colored shirts and vacant minds.
I'm Mrs. Brewster, Doctor, Ann Brewster. When does the ship go?
In about a second, Mrs. Brewster, you will hear the whistle, then the band will strike up, all langs in, and then...
We're moving, aren't we?
Yes? Don't you feel the vibration of the engines?
Goodbye, Tommy. Take care of yourself while I'm
Come on, dear. I'll see you at Christmas. Whoa! The key to the car is in the living room table drawer.
If you go out with any wrongs, Tommy, I'll kill you when they get back. Goodbye,
living room, Susie. Yes, dear. Of course I'll behave myself in Paris. Say, what time does the bar open aboard this time,
I imagine this is not your first crossing, madam.
Oh, I'm afraid it is, Dr. Heinrich. My husband's crossed many times, he tells me, but not on this ship.
Well, then I hope you're a good sailor.
Why, Dr. Heinrich?
Well, because we'll run into some very dirty weather once we are out at sea. October is a very bad month for traveling.
Well, if I do get seasick, Doctor, I'll rush straight to you, and I'll expect to be cured.
Let me tell you a secret, madam. There are two common ailments for which medical science has no cure. One is ordinary seasickness, and the other is hangover. Tomorrow morning I shall be dealing with both.
And enjoying it?
Oh, no. Sympathizing with it. That's all I can do. How do you like the Mauravania?
Oh, it's a magnificent ship from what I've seen of it. And you know they've given us a very nice cabin down on B deck, B13. What's the matter? Why are you looking at me like that?
I beg your pardon. Did you say B13?
Yes. Why not?
You're quite sure of that, madam?
Why, yes, of course I'm sure of it. I saw the number on the door. Why not?
Well, because
Go on, Dr. Heinrich.
Because there's no such cabin aboard a ship. I'm not joking, Mrs. Brewster. You see, some people are superstitious. Many ships, like this one, omit number 13 on each deck. You must have been mistaken.
What are you trying to tell me? Do you think I saw something that wasn't there?
No, Mrs. Brewster, not at all.
Then come along with me. I'll show you. I'll prove to you that there is a number 13. Will you come along?
Yes, Mrs. Brewster? I think perhaps I had better escort you.
Stewardess!
Yes, miss. Yes, ma'am. Come in straight away.
Tell me, stewardess, this is B-deck, isn't it?
B-deck, ma'am? Oh, yes, ma'am. No doubt about that.
Dr. Heinrich and I have been all over this part of the ship looking for cabin number 13, but we don't...
I've been trying to convince this lady stewardess that there's no such cabin number 13 on this ship.
Why, there sure to heaven isn't, ma'am. And never has been. I've served aboard the Mauravania a matter of 8 years, and I ought to know.
But I tell you, I saw it. I was in there. It was a big cabin with a private bathroom attached. The walls were paneled in light oak, and the furniture was rosewood and yellow satin, and the portholes were like real windows.
No, that's not much good, ma'am.
No, I'm afraid not. Most of the cabins hereabouts look like that. May I ask you, what name was the cabin booked in?
Brewster, naturally. Mr. and Mrs. Richard E. Brewster.
Here, let's have a look on my list. No, there's no Brewster here, ma'am.
I tell you, I was in there. They even delivered the luggage. I saw it.
Excuse me, ma'am, but I had a look-see in all the cabins I'm in charge of, just to see if the passengers wanted anything. And I don't remember any luggage with a Brewster label on it.
Wait a minute. There may be a partial explanation of this.
You see, that's better, Mrs. Brewster. I was hoping you might find one.
Ricky, that's my husband. Ricky and I have only been married a very short time, and when my maid printed the baggage labels, she must have made them out in my maiden name. I never noticed at the time.
Oh, what name might that be, ma'am?
Thornton. Anne-Marie Thornton.
Oh, Lord, miss. Now, why couldn't you have said that before? I remember it well. 2 silk cases and a little trunk. They're in B16 now.
Where's B16?
Right behind you, miss. You're standing practically in front of the door.
Oh, thank goodness for you. Oh, yes, but, what about my husband's luggage?
There's no gentleman's luggage in that cabin, miss. Your husband's or any other gentleman's, if you know what I mean.
I won't stand for this. Where's Ricky? What have you done with Ricky?
Please, Mrs. Brewster. There's one easy way to settle this.
Settle it? How?
Just look down the corridor. You notice the man coming towards us? The man with the 2 gold stripes around his sleeve?
Well?
That's Mr. Marshall, our second officer. Did you ever see him before?
Yes. Yes, of course I have. He was standing at the top of the gangplank when Rick and I got aboard.
Exactly. So he might be able to tell us something.
Oh.
Mr. Marshall? Mr. Marshall?
Yes, Doctor, what's up?
Would you mind coming here for a moment?
Well, not at all, old boy. Always glad to oblige a chap who may have to cut me up at any moment, eh? What may I do for you?
Take a good look at this young lady. And tell me, have you seen her before?
Seen her before? My dear chap, if I had overlooked, the young lady will pardon me, I know, a passenger as charming as this lady is, I would be less of the gentleman than I fancy myself, eh?
You saw her coming aboard tonight?
Oh, yes, certainly.
And, of course, you saw the gentleman who was with her.
The gentleman who was with her?
Yes!
Oh, but there was nobody with her, old boy.
You're quite certain of that, Mr. Marshall?
My dear doctor, she was the last of them to come aboard. I'll take my Bible oath there was no other passenger with her, or ahead of her, or behind her, if it comes to that.
You're lying to me.
Please, Mrs. Brewster, lower your voice.
I know what it is. It's the old Paris trick, like in the story. But you won't get away with it, do you hear?
Now, look here, madam.
I'll go to the purser, I'll go to the captain. Oh, dear Father in heaven, won't anybody believe me?
Later that night, in the captain's room just abaft the bridge, there is a conference of ship's officers. Outside, stung by spray clinging to the bulkhead rail in the dark, a frightened girl waits until the door of the cabin's room opens.
Will you bring the young lady in, Dr. Heinrich, and close the door?
Yes, sir. Here we are. This is Captain Wainwright. Now, just tell your story straightforwardly and please don't excite yourself.
Well, maybe we can get some decision into this matter. Will you sit down here beside my desk, Miss Thornton?
My name is Brewster, Captain. Mrs. Ann Brewster.
Whatever you say, Mrs. Brewster.
Thank you very much, Captain.
I might tell you, ma'am, I've got a lot on my mind already. My first officer comes aboard with an attack of flu. I'm facing an equinoctial gale short-handed, and now this has to happen on top of it.
I'm terribly sorry I can't help that, Captain. But I want to know what they've done with Ricky.
Just one moment, please, while I get this straight. By this time, I understand you yourself have personally interviewed practically every single passenger aboard this ship. Is that true?
Yes, it's true.
But your alleged husband is not here. Is that true?
Yes, that's true,
In the meantime, the purser has sent a squad of men to search this ship. They've searched every inch of it. You can take my word for that. There's nobody hidden. Your husband's not here. According to Mr. Marshall, who's standing over there...
I see him.
According to Mr. Marshall, he never was here.
Oh, hang it all, Miss Thornton. You needn't glare at me like that. We couldn't see the chap. He wasn't there, now could we?
Be quiet, Mr. Marshall.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not unreasonable, Mrs. Brewster. I think you'll admit that. But what can I do? What can I say? Can you offer any proof, even, that this husband of yours ever existed?
Proof? Yes, of course I can.
Excuse me for interrupting, but would you mind, Captain, if I ask a question or two?
No, Doctor, go ahead. I tell you, I'm going daft myself.
If you were married, Mrs. Brewster, you must be carrying a joint husband and wife passport. Where is that?
Well, there wasn't time to get one. We each carried our own passport.
Oh, I see. But still, there must be someone back in America who can confirm what you say if we got in touch by radio telephone. Your parents, for instance.
I haven't got any parents. They're dead.
What about relatives, then, or a guardian?
My guardian is a trust company. The administrators don't even know I'm married.
But somebody must have performed the ceremony of marriage. The parson, the justice of peace.
Yes, of course. But... Oh, I can't remember the name of the town.
You don't remember the name of the town?
Hold tight to your chair, Mrs. Brewster. The ship is going to pitch again.
How's the glass looking, Mr. Marshall?
Barometer's rising, sir. This weather won't hold long. We shall be in the fog before morning, though.
We're in a fog now, if you ask me. This lady says she
I'm terribly sorry, but I'm trying to think of it. It was a little town in upstate New York where they can marry you at a moment's notice. Ricky kept the certificate. I was confused. I haven't been well.
No, you haven't.
You see, Ricky had been away, and he came back, and I was in love with him, and he sort of swept me off my feet, and... Oh, what's the use?
Not much use, apparently.
If you'll take my advice, ma'am, you'll go below to your cabin and get some sleep. I'll send the doctor down to mix you a sedative.
You think I'm crazy, don't you?
I think you're a little overwrought, ma'am.
What I can't understand is why. Why should you want to do this? It can't be the bubonic plague this time.
Bubonic plague, ma'am? Who said anything about the bubonic plague?
Never mind. But I'll show you. You're all against me, except maybe the doctor. But I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. I am going downstairs, and I don't want anybody to follow me. Good night. Good night, all of you.
Well, I'm glad that's over.
Look here, Mr. Marshall.
Huh?
You think it's quite safe to trust her out there alone?
Well, I don't know, sir. She's mad as a hatter, if you ask me.
You think she might do something foolish?
Well, I think she might chuck herself overboard if we're not careful.
What's your opinion, Doctor?
I can give you my opinion, gentlemen, in a very few words. That girl is as sane as you are.
What's that?
Wait and hear what I have to say. I shared your own belief at first, but I've been talking to her all evening. I've heard her whole story, and there's not a psychopathic trait in her nature. She firmly believes in this husband.
Yes, Doctor. A lot of people firmly believe they're Napoleon, but they get tossed into loony bins, as to say.
This matter is not a joke, Mr. Marshall. I tell you, this man exists. Or did exist.
What do you mean, Doctor?
I suppose he has been murdered. Perhaps he has been murdered and thrown overboard.
Murdered? Thrown overboard?
If you remember, Richard Brewster was carrying a very large sum of money in cash. His wife's wedding gifts. Practically all her inheritance. He meant to go to the purser's office, but he never got there. That money might have been a great temptation.
To whom?
To a stewardess, perhaps, or even to a ship's officer.
Just exactly what are you getting at?
Well, numbers on doors can be changed easily enough. Just print a small card and put it on the metal slot on the door.
I still want to know what you're driving at.
If you use your intelligence, gentlemen, I think you will understand how a man can be made to vanish into thin air, and why Mr. Marshall saw never another passenger. You still don't see it?
No, I do not.
Well, then listen, and I'll explain exactly how a situation like this...
4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock, the hour of suicides and bad dreams. The gale has subsided, the sea is calm. The SS Mauravania creeps blindly at barely 8 knots through a thick and strangling fog. The whole ship is dark and sealed up in sleep. There's no sound in all that mournful dimness, except when the foghorn cries out a warning overhead. Even cabin B-16 is dark. Anne Brewster, still fully dressed, lies restlessly across one of the berths, her head almost touching the intercabin telephone.
What was... Oh, I thought I heard... Telephone. Yes? Hello?
It's me, Anne. Take it easy now.
Ricky! Ricky, where are you?
Quiet. Keep your voice down.
Where are you, Ricky? What happened to you? Are you hurt?
No, I'm not hurt, but he nearly got me.
Who nearly got you?
Listen, dear. I can't explain over the phone, and I don't dare go down there. Can you meet me up on deck?
Yes, of course. Where?
Do you know the boat deck?
Boat deck? Which one is that?
The top deck, where all the lifeboats are slung.
Oh, yes, I know it.
Well, go to the starboard side.
Yes?
That's the right-hand side, facing forward. Find the 4th lifeboat from the aft companionway.
Yes.
There's a thick fog, and nobody will see us.
Ricky. What is it? Ricky! He's gone. He's gone.
Excuse me, miss, but I thought I heard somebody talking in here.
Stewardess, what are you doing up at this time of the night?
If I might ask, miss, what are you doing up and dressed? Oh, you ought to get some sleep, miss. You really ought.
It might interest you to know, stewardess, that I've just been talking to my husband.
Now, look here, miss. Don't start that all over again. Please don't start that all over again.
You all pretended to think I was mad, didn't you? And you nearly drove me mad. Ricky's beaten the whole crowd of you, and I'm going out on deck to meet him now.
Out on deck, miss.
That's what I said. Where's my coat?
Don't go out there, miss. Not in the state of mind you're in. And the fog's so thick, you can't hardly see your hand in front of your face.
Stand away from the door, please.
Suppose, miss, I didn't want to let you go out there.
I don't think that would matter much. You've probably heard that mad people have 10 times ordinary strength, and I'm stronger than you anyway.
Miss, I'm a begging you.
Stand away from that door! 1, 2, 3rd.
Anne, is that you?
Yes. Ricky. Ricky, darling, where are you?
Here, duck your head under the lifeboat. Here, take my hand.
But isn't it horribly dangerous out there on the edge? There's no railing along the side of the ship.
Don't worry, Anne. I won't let you fall. Look out! Oh, went overboard here. We're well aft near the propellers. The suction would carry you into the propeller blades and... Now, listen.
I can't hear anything except the foghorn.
Yeah, but I can. There's somebody walking along the deck. And I can see a flashlight moving in the fog.
You're quite right, my friend. You can see a flashlight moving in the fog.
Dr. Heinrich, what are you doing here?
At the moment, young lady, I'm covering both of you with a revolver. Please don't move.
So, you were in the conspiracy, Dr. Heinrich.
May I ask you what conspiracy?
The whole ship's conspiracy to say Richard Brewster didn't exist.
My dear young lady, you can set your mind at rest. There never was any ship's conspiracy against you. The people you spoke to were perfectly honest.
Including Mr. Marshall, I suppose.
Yes, including Mr. Marshall.
And what is this all
Stand back there.
I suppose he was telling the truth when he said nobody came up the gangplank before or after me.
I beg your pardon. That was not what he said. He said no passenger came up the gangplank at this time.
Well, what's the difference?
A great crime is arranged for tonight, young lady. No less a crime than murder.
Murder? Who's going to be murdered?
You are.
What?
That, I repeat, is a scheme. But there is no conspiracy and only one criminal.
Oh. And who is the criminal?
The criminal is the man standing beside you. Your so-called husband.
Ricky? Oh, you don't know what you're saying.
I think I do. Marshall, of course, did see someone walk up the gangplank, loitering behind you. But he never dreamt of associating the person in any way with you. He saw a ship's officer returning from shore leave in civilian clothes.
A ship's officer?
Yes. The man you call your husband, his name isn't Richard Brewster. His real name is Blaney. And he's the first officer of the Mauravania.
Are you trying to tell me
the captain
that
can identify him. He's actually British, though he can fake an American accent very well. He has already got a wife in England, and he is planning to join her with the $10,000 he got from you.
I don't believe it. I don't. Ricky, why don't you say something?
Oh, he planned it very cleverly, I must admit. He never let you know he was ship's officer, did he? He's been away for some time, naturally, so he persuaded you to marry him in a hurry.
Ricky, is this true?
He has the money, you see. All he did was hang a dummy number on the cabin door, remove it later, put on his uniform, and walk away with his own luggage.
But Captain Wainwright told us that the first officer had come aboard tonight with...
With a bad attack of flu, yes. Our friend couldn't be seen in public until after he disposed of you. The best thing was to convince everybody you were insane, as he did. Then, when you went overboard tonight...
They would all believe it was suicide.
Exactly. But I began to suspect this Brewster, because you quoted him as telling such an obvious lie. He said he had never traveled in the Mauravania, yet he could direct you all over the ship, and even knew where the purser's office was. So I went to his cabin, found it empty, searched, and found your $10,000.
Look out, Dr. Henry!
Put it down, you fool! Put it down!
Oh! He's overboard! You shot him! You shot him!
Your shots, my dear, never touched him.
Never touched him?
No. The weight of the iron carried him over backwards when he lifted it. It was the weight he was going to use to sink your body.
Ricky! The propellers! The ship's propellers!
Yes, they suck you under.
Oh, Doctor. Doctor, I can't stand this.
It won't be easy, my dear. It won't be easy, I know, but believe me, this way is better.
And so closes Cabin B-13, starring Margot and Philip Dorn. Tonight's tale of Suspense. With our two stars tonight were Dennis Hoy as Captain Wainwright and William Johnstone as Ricky Brewster. This is the Man in Black who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next week, same time, when our star will be one of the screen year's most sensational newcomers, Mr. Gene Kelly. Mr. Kelly will be supported by Hans Conried and William Johnstone. The producer and director of Suspense is William Spear, who with Lud Gluskin and Lucian Morawick, conductor and composer, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
Suspense fans, please note that these programs will shortly move to different days of the week. Suspense will come to listeners in Eastern and Central time zones on Thursdays, beginning December the 2nd, and to Mountain and Pacific time zone listeners on Monday, beginning December the 6th. Remember, Thursday, beginning December the 2nd in Eastern and Central time zone, and Mondays, beginning December the 6th in the Pacific and Mountain time zones for Suspense. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. In our starring Hollywood cast tonight are Mr. John Sutton, who appears as a young English doctor, Jim Norwood, who knew a great deal more than he admitted concerning the strange events which we are about to relate, and Mr. George Zucco, who plays the village curate, the Reverend Arthur Morley. Our story, and it bears none but a coincidental resemblance to H.G. Wells' famous short novel, The Invisible Man, is by John Dickson Carr and is called The Man Without a Body, tonight's tale of suspense. If you have been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you. And so it is with The Man Without a Body and the performances of John Sutton and George Zucco. We again hope to keep you in suspense. A lonely beach of low white sand hills edged by the surf of the North Sea. And back from the beach, drowsing as it has drowsed for 10 centuries, lies the village of Aldbridge in Suffolk. There is the seawall, now defaced by air raid shelters. And there are the rolling grain fields, the thatched white cottages, the spire of St. Luke's Church above the oak trees. Ancient and bell-haunted, lost among hedgerows, this village could never cause consternation in London newspaper offices. And yet, on that warm night nearly 4 years ago...
This time it's really happened. A man without a body, completely invisible.
Copy, boy. Copy, boy. Look at this dispatch. Reign of terror in Suffolk village. Has another of H.G. Wells' romances come true?
An invisible man? I can't believe it.
What's the matter with that village? They all gone scatty? Mr. George Wellman, builder, states that as he was returning home along the main road from Bury St. Edmunds...
He distinctly saw a man's hat, without any head under it, moving towards him about 6 feet above the ground.
George must have been full of beer. We can't use this story. Copy, boy! Even more surprising evidence was given by the Reverend Arthur Morley, vicar of St. Luke's Church. Who? The parson? You don't think he was full of beer? One question above all agitates the village. Who is Professor Ansmith? Who is this elderly American, said to be an inventor, who has settled at Aldbridge and leased a part of the house belonging to the local doctor? Out of some terrifying workshop, to strike like a maniac, where least expected, has there at last emerged...
A real invisible man?
The Church of St. Luke, Aldbridge, on that same Sunday evening. The evening service is over now, though an echo of bells still lingers. In the vestry at the rear of the church, where white surplices hang like ghosts, the Reverend Arthur Morley sits with his daughter Janice. It is a stone room of painted windows, now many-colored in the sunset. And here, as the drowsy summer light turns to dusk.
Janice, I don't believe it.
I know, Father.
I saw it with my own eyes, yet I don't believe it. You don't think we were dreaming, do you?
No, Father. We weren't dreaming.
If this goes on, the whole village will be in a frenzy. But what can I do?
We could go to Professor Ansmith and ask him straight out.
Ask him whether he's responsible for these...
Yes.
I wonder, Janice. The man isn't hurting anybody, you know. You couldn't ask for a quieter person or a better neighbor. And yet... What's that?
Father, you are upset. It's only Mr. Emmett coming down from the belfry.
Emmett? Oh, yes, of course. Is that you, Mr. Emmett?
It's me, all right, sir. And very much in the flesh. Did you think I was the invisible man?
Mr. Emmett, I forbid you to mention that subject.
Very good, sir. But there's others, begging your pardon, that do mention it.
Oh, yes, forgive me. I spoke too sharply.
Oh, that's all right, sir. No harm done, no bones broken. Mind you not that I hold with this talk about invisible men. It ain't natural, I say. It ain't hardly Christian. I'm a greengrocer by trade, and I believe in what I can weigh and feel and...
What's the matter, Mr. Emmett? Is anything wrong?
Excuse me, sir. And you too, miss. Do you see anybody in this room except us?
No, of course not. Why?
Because I could have sworn something brushed past me just now.
You're imagining things, Mr. Emmett.
Yes, sir, I dare say.
There's
but,
nobody hidden in the Belfry Tower, I hope.
No, sir. I had a look-see. And what's more, there's not going to be anybody up there once I've locked the door. Now, let the blighter try and get in.
Oh, please, Mr. Emmett. And you too, Father. You're talking about this invisible man as though he actually existed.
There's something funny going on, miss. You can't deny that.
No, none of us can deny it.
And what's more, sir, it's getting pretty dark in here. Hadn't you and Miss Janice better get along to the vicarage while I lock up?
No, we can't go just yet, Mr. Emmett. We're expecting Dr. Norwood.
Dr. Jim Norwood, sir? What does he say about all this?
Oh, you might ask him yourself, Mr. Emmett. I think that's probably him now. Come in. The vestry door's not locked.
Oh, hello, Padre. Hello, Janice. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, hello, Jim. You seem a good deal out of breath.
I am out of breath, Janice, because there's blue blazes to pay down in the village.
Not more trouble.
Yes, I'm afraid so. They're holding a mass meeting at the Coach and Horses, and they're ready to murder Professor Ansmith. If this invisible man cuts any more capers, we may see a real old-fashioned lynching in an English village.
Now, look here, my boy. This has got to stop.
I know that, Padre, but how are we going to stop it?
Sit down there, Jim, across the table from me.
Yes, sir.
First of all, what do you know about this Professor Ansmith?
Nothing, sir. Nothing at all.
But you rent part of your house to him.
Oh, my dear Padre, that house is twice as big as I can possibly manage. I was only too glad to get a tenant.
He gave you references, I imagine?
Yes, but I didn't bother to check him. He's a quiet old boy. Pays his rent on the dot. Never does anything except read and go for long walks.
Are you quite sure of that, Jim?
The village has war nerves, that's all. With the camouflage aerodrome in the neighborhood, they're apt to imagine anything.
True, perhaps, but...
That talk about dynamos humming in the old boy's room and blue lights flashing is rubbish out of a sensational film. They imagine the whole thing. Finally, this crazy story about an invisible man playing the gramophone. Why,
it's not a crazy story, Jim. Janice and I saw it happen.
You what?
Last night, about 9:30, Janice and I were out for a walk in the lane that runs past your house. On the way, we met Willie Kendrick, and he joined us.
Well, sir?
Listen, Jim. On that side of the house, there's a little square room with 2 windows and no furniture except a round table and a couple of chairs. Do you know the one we mean?
Yes, of course. Professor Ansmith uses it. What about the room?
It wasn't quite blackout time. The windows were up, the curtains weren't drawn, and the room was brightly lighted. On the table stood an old-fashioned gramophone with a horn and a crank handle. Beside it lay a pair of white cotton gloves, like gardener's gloves. The gramophone was playing away for dear life, but there was nobody in the room. Janice thought that was a bit odd, a gramophone going full tilt with nobody there, and called my attention to it. Just then, the gramophone started to run down. We could hear the record slow and go off key. As it did so...
Well, sir, go on.
As it did so, those white gloves got up off the table.
Got up off the table?
Got up off the table, took hold of the gramophone, and wound it up again.
Mr. Emmett, what on earth are you doing?
I dropped some candlesticks.
So I see. Please pick them up again.
Yes.
Padre, are you serious?
Perfectly serious.
A pair of gloves without any hands inside them?
Yes.
But what did they do exactly?
The left-hand glove steadied the gramophone. The right-hand glove wound it up. Then they both hung in the air, beating time to the music. It should have been funny. I can only assure you it was not funny.
Oh, what happened then?
Oh, Jim, it was horrible. Willie Kendrick let out a yell and ran down the lane between the apple trees as though the devil were after him.
I can't say I blame him.
Father and I just stood there and...
Stared is the word, my dear.
Yes, stared. I can't forget any of it. The 3-legged table and the whirling record and the blue flowers on the wallpaper. But there was nobody there. We could see past the table and under the table and all over the room. And there was nobody there.
Except the man without any body.
Confound the man without any body.
Father, suppose it is true.
As a clergyman, my dear, I prefer to remain agnostic. This thing's a trick.
Yes, but how's it done and why?
That's the whole point, Jim. What worries me is the effect on our people here. We call ourselves intelligent, and yet, look at us. Even Mr. Emmett there.
Hey, what's that about me, sir?
A few minutes ago, you thought something brushed past you when you were coming down the stairs from the bell tower. Now, didn't you?
Well, yes, sir.
You see what I mean, Jim?
But I didn't really think so, sir. Not really. It was imagination, just like the doctor said. Because I searched that tower. I locked the door afterwards.
Exactly. But the mere force of suggestion, nothing more, might lead you to believe.
That's not suggestion, Father.
Sir, I'll stake my Bible oath there's nobody in that belfry.
Bells can't ring by themselves, old man. There's somebody pulling the rope up there, and we're going to find out who it is.
Now, one moment, all of you.
What's wrong, Padre? You're as white as a ghost.
This blasphemous mockery, it seems, extends even to the church. Very well. You will stay with Janice, my boy. Emmett and I will collar this invisible man.
Why can't I go, too?
I don't believe in this, but I should prefer to have someone with Janice. You're not afraid, Mr. Emmett?
If it's alive, sir, I'm not afraid of it. And if it's dead, well, you're not afraid of it. The tower door's open, sir. I'm ready.
Don't do it, Father. Don't go.
You can't help them, Janice. Sit down here. Take it easy.
Jim Norwood, what's wrong with you?
Wrong with me?
You've got an odd look, too. And the light's fading. And the surplices look like ghosts. And in another minute, that bell would drive me mad. Suppose he has got in.
Who?
The invisible man.
Oh, don't talk rot.
As there are sounds that the ear cannot hear, so there are colors that the eye cannot see. I read that somewhere. He hasn't hurt anybody yet. But suppose he turns nasty and does hurt somebody.
He can't hurt anybody.
How do you know?
Janice, listen to me. Take my hand.
Oh, but Jim...
I want to tell you a few things you won't understand. I don't ask you to understand. I just ask you to remember.
Well, what is it?
The first is a question. If you were a government official and wanted to find an expert on camouflage, where would you go?
An expert on camouflage?
Yes. And the second point is this. I studied medicine in Germany.
I know that, but that's
One night on a bet, I hid backstage at the Winter Garden Theater in Berlin. I saw the whole show from backstage, and I learned a great deal.
Jim Norwood, what on earth are you talking
George
about?
Wellman and I have talked the whole thing over. In a way, Janice, there is an invisible man. I can tell you who he is and how he works. But there's no danger, do you understand? There's no danger at all.
Jim, what was that?
I don't know.
You do know. I can see it in your face. You do know.
I think somebody's fallen
Fallen?
from the top of the belfry.
Father!
Stay here, Janice. You can't do any good.
Let go of my arm. I'm going up there.
No, you're not. I didn't think what the danger might be. Besides, there's somebody coming down the stairs now. Stay just where you are and don't move until...
Oh, Father. Father, are you all right?
Steady, sir. Take it easy now.
I'm perfectly all right, yes. But you'd better go into the churchyard and see to Emmett.
He fell?
No, Janice, he did not fall. He was thrown.
Oh.
Thrown? By whom?
There's no time to argue now. You're a doctor. Go out and see to him.
Well, is he in...
I don't know. Go.
Yes, sir.
For I will work a deed in your days which ye will not believe, though it be told you. Janice, this is incredible.
Why?
You heard the bell ring. I saw it ring.
Without anybody there?
I was as close to that bell as I am to you now. No hand held the rope. There were no strings or wires or any tricks to make it move. Yet it clanged back and forth alone in the tower. And I thought I heard someone laugh.
Laugh?
Oh, don't take that too seriously. We were both overwrought, and the noise of the bell was deafening.
What about Mr. Emmett?
Emmett yelled some words I couldn't hear and lunged for the bell. Then something caught him. Something caught him and gave him a sledgehammer blow in the back. That belfry's nothing but open arches. You heard him scream. I saw his face just before he went over.
Lock the door to the tower, Father. Lock it.
I can't lock it. Emmett has the key. But why should I lock it?
Because he's still in there.
He?
He hadn't done any harm before, but he's done harm now. There's no telling what might happen if he gets loose.
You mean?
I mean Professor Ann Smith's protege, whoever he is. The man without a body.
Under the red sunset, some quarter of a mile away, a grass-carpeted lane winds between rows of apple trees. The lane is dusky, though lights shine into it from the windows of a large stone house, Dr. Norwood's house beyond the apple trees. Up and down. Up and down, a shadowy figure is pacing. An elderly figure, a dejected figure, tall and frail as a shadow among shadows, muttering to itself, shaking its head, now and then raising one fist in bewilderment or anguish. Sometimes the light gleams on large spectacles and a kindly mouth. Up and down. Endlessly up and down strides Professor Ansmith.
I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. How can I convince them that I'm not guilty? Who's there? I saw you dodge behind that tree. Stand out, sir.
Did you call me, Professor Ansmith?
Yes, I did call you. Who are you?
You probably won't recognize me, Professor Ansmith.
Nevertheless, my friend, may I ask what your name is?
My name is Wellman, Professor. George Wellman.
Wellman. I've heard that name.
Maybe you have. I'm a builder by trade, and a great friend of Dr. Norwood's.
Wait one moment. Aren't you the young man whose firm is putting up these air raid shelters along the seawall? And making such an unholy din with your riveting machines?
That's me.
And come to think of it, aren't you the one who first started this alarm about an invisible man?
Yes, because I met him.
You did not meet him, sir. This whole thesis is scientific nonsense, and I won't have it.
You won't have what?
I'm an old man, Mr. Wellman. I never did anybody the least harm. As God is my judge, I know nothing whatever about this... What's that?
It looks like the Dickson Carr, Professor. You'd better stand back. This is a pretty narrow lane.
Ansmith! Professor Ansmith!
Yes, Mr. Morley, I hear you.
We thought you'd better drive over here straight away. I think you've met my daughter. And, of course, you know Dr. Norwood.
Yes,
but there's no time for any social formalities. Get into your house, Professor Ansmith. Get in quickly and close the shutters.
But why should I do that?
Because there's a mob coming, sir, and we can't stop them.
Hurry, do hurry.
A mob coming here? Why?
Haven't you heard the news?
I've heard nothing, my friend. The only person I've seen has been that young man there who chews a toothpick and hides behind the trees.
George Wellman? What on earth are you doing here?
Watching, Janice. Watching and waiting, just as usual.
Listen to me, Professor Ansmith. Henry Emmett, the head verger at St. Luke's, was thrown from the belfry window not 20 minutes ago.
Not by me, sir, I assure you. I had nothing to do with it.
No, not by you, but apparently by the invisible man.
Oh, Father in heaven, will this never stop?
Not till we catch the fellow. No.
Be quiet, Mr. Wellman, please.
I'm sorry, Padre. I take it back.
I myself can testify that no visible person laid hands on Emmett. He was struck as though with a gigantic fist. What's the matter, Professor Ansmith? Is anything wrong?
No. I was just thinking. Is Emmett dead?
Fortunately, no.
I'm glad of that, my friend, for a certain person's sake.
He's not even seriously hurt. The bell tower isn't high, and a tree broke the force of his fall. But he's badly shaken up, and that crowd at the Coach and Horses means trouble. If you haven't anything to say to us, if you haven't a word of explanation to utter...
Listen, Padre, don't you hear anything?
Yes, I thought I heard voices.
Can't be that crowd from the village. We're too far ahead of them.
It's a crowd, all right. And they've been here for hours.
But where? I don't see anybody.
Jim, look, behind the trees.
Look behind the trees. Look beyond the hedgerows. Look for any place where a watcher can hide.
And may I ask what they're doing here?
They're watching you, Professor Ansmith.
More of your spies, you mean?
You can call them anything you please. But they're getting impatient and they want a showdown. If I as much as hold my hand up like this... Don't throw stones at the windows, you fools! You're only breaking the doctor's windows!
Gentlemen, I can't have any more of this. Be quiet, all of you, and listen to me.
Well, sir, we're listening.
I'm a peaceful man. I like to live in peace with my neighbors. I have nothing to do with this so-called reign of terror. But you don't believe that, do you?
No.
Then I must expose a fraud. Now, don't blame me if I expose the trickster, too. I have made preparations to show you the Invisible Man. The man without a body.
Quiet, everybody!
Mr. Morley, I believe you and your daughter walked through this lane last night while I was away at the Bury St. Edmunds.
I don't know about your being away, sir. My daughter and I were certainly here, yes.
Good, good. Miss Janice Morley.
Yes, Professor Ansmith.
Will you look toward your right, please, at the house? What do you see?
It's the same room.
What room?
The room with the little round table and the gramophone.
It's a three-legged table, you notice.
Yes, of course.
But there's nobody in the room.
No, nobody at all.
Are conditions exactly as they were last night?
Yes, except there aren't any gloves on the table.
No, but the Invisible Man is there.
Oh.
A living presence, ready to act and breathe and even kill. With your permission, I shall now address him. Hello in there. Hello in there. Hello in there.
If anybody answers him, Father, I'm going to scream.
Quiet, Janice, quiet.
Father, look. The gloves are appearing on the table.
I call out to him and I speak as follows. Hold the phonograph with your left glove. That's it. Turn the handle with your right. One turn, 2, 3, 4. That's enough. Touch the spring with your left hand. Push the record. Lower the needle with your right and... Ladies and gentlemen, the Invisible Man.
Hold him on! Hold, you fools! Don't you see?
On the contrary, let them throw all they like. Aim at the table, my friend. Aim at the table.
Why at the table?
Because then they'll see the trick.
I don't follow you. What trick?
The trick of the looking glasses. There. You see now, my friend?
I think I do.
The legs of the table form a triangle with its point towards you. Panels of looking glass are fitted in the two sides facing you.
What do you know about that?
You think you can see under the table, but what you actually see are the side walls of the room reflected in those two mirrors.
Oh, wait a minute. You mean...
I mean that my old servant, hidden behind the mirrors, has just been working the gloves to a panel in the tabletop. It's a very old trick, first shown by Colonel Stadair at the London Polytechnic.
And that's what happened last night?
Yes.
And you had nothing to do with it?
Nothing whatever, nor had my servant.
Then who did do it and why? What is the explanation of all this?
Well, I can't tell you why. That's what beats me. But I can tell you everything else.
This Invisible Man who's been scaring us all silly?
My dear young lady, there's no Invisible Man. There never has been.
I might believe that, Professor Ansmith, if I hadn't seen a church bell ringing where there was no hand to ring it. And poor old Emmett flung out of the tower as though a giant hand had got hold of him. You're not saying that was done with the looking glasses?
No, my friend, not at all. That was really clever.
Strings? Wires? Ropes?
No, they weren't necessary.
But the thing's impossible.
Oh, no. The same principle was used by my old friend J.N. Maskelyne to make mechanical figures work. Psycho played whist, and Zoe drew pictures. I myself,
Go on, sir. You yourself, what are you going to say?
The secret I was about to say remains unknown even today. You were right, in a way, when you tell us that Emmett acted as though a giant had got hold of him. A giant had got hold of him. At least, a gigantic force.
Oh, before we all go completely mad, would you mind telling us what this gigantic force was?
Not at all. It was compressed air.
Compressed air?
But don't you see it even yet, any of you?
No.
A compressed air pipe with 1,000 pounds pressure behind it was run up into the tower facing the bell. It could be operated from the ground outside. The pressure was turned on and off in bursts. It made that heavy bell swing like a toy. Emmett, don't you remember? Emmett rushed forwards towards the bell.
And the air pressure?
The air pressure struck him like a sledgehammer and flung him headlong out of the tower. There's your miracle, gentlemen. That's all there was to it.
Sir, I can't doubt what you say. It's too circumstantial and too right.
But what, my friend?
The compressed air tanks, the mechanical apparatus to work this trick.
Well, what about it?
Where did it come from? Such things don't grow on bushes.
No, but they do grow on riveting machines.
Riveting machines?
Yes, such as the riveting machine they're using on the air raid shelters along the seawall. Would you care to tell us, Dr. James Norwood, why you and your friend Wellman have been playing all these tricks?
All of you. Jim Norwood, is this true?
Why, of course it's true, Mr. Morley. Don't be so gullible.
Jim and George Wellman doing all this? I don't believe it.
Take a look at their faces, young lady. Did you ever see a guiltier-looking pair?
So we look guilty, do we?
Frankly, you do.
We played the whole game and convinced the village there was an invisible man. Is that it?
Yes. You worked the glove trick in your own house. And Wellman worked the air trick with his own equipment. Everything else was nothing but a pack of lies and a lot of atmosphere. Playing conjurers and making a blasted hash of it.
Is that all, Professor Ann Smith?
Well, remember, you brought this on yourself. I didn't want to expose you.
No, Professor. I bet you didn't. Easy, George. Take it easy.
Jim, is this true?
Before you start pitching into me, Janice, let me have my word first. Do you remember what I said to you at the church tonight?
At the church?
Yes, I asked you to remember something, even if you didn't understand it. All right. Can you remember what it was?
Oh, Jim, please. You're only trying to evade this. Oh, I'm so confused now, I don't remember anything. All I can think of is this horrible business and what's behind it. Father can't believe his ears, and I'm not much better. We've practically idolized you. All we want you to do is answer a straight question. Jim, are these accusations true?
Yes, they are true.
Doubtless he had a good reason, Janice. Doubtless he had a good reason.
Yes, we had a good reason.
The very best reason in the world.
You had a good reason for scaring people half to death and trying to kill poor old Henry Emmett?
We didn't mean any harm against Emmett. That was an accident.
But you dare to defend yourself now?
Yes, just that.
Before we go home, Father, shall we apologize to Professor Ann Smith? I hope he'll try to think better of English hospitality.
Good, Janice, good. I hope he will, too.
You hope he will.
Listen, Janice, before you act on any belief, you have to be absolutely sure in your own mind. George and I had to prove something, and now I'm glad to say we have proved it.
Oh, I can't stand this any longer. If you have anything to say, go on and say it straight out. What was it you had to prove?
We had to prove to our own satisfaction that this pretended American who calls himself Professor Ann Smith...
Pretended American?
Who calls himself Professor Ann Smith?
We had to prove that this pretended American was no other than Karl Heinrich von Keist, the celebrated stage magician from the Winter Garden Theater in Berlin.
What?
Whose real job is to find the camouflage aerodrome near Bury St. Edmunds.
No.
He explained his own tricks very nicely, George. We'll swear out a warrant in the morning.
And so closes The Man Without a Body, starring John Sutton and George Zucco. Tonight's tale of Suspense. This is your narrator, the Man in Black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, when the distinguished actress, Miss Agnes Moorehead, will be heard in one of her many brilliant characterizations. Starring with Miss Moorehead will be Miss Ellen Drew, who as Carol Linden tells the amazing story of Uncle Henry's Rosebush. The producer of these broadcasts is William Spear, with Ted Bliss, the director, Bernard Herrmann and Lucian Mahowick, conductor and composer, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense.
the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Heading our starring Hollywood cast this evening is Mr. Paul Lucas, and with him are Miss Heather Angel and Mr. Bramwell Fletcher. Story by John Dickson Carr, dealing with strange, very strange happenings in a London curio shop, and called Mr. Markham, Antique Dealer, is tonight's tale of suspense. If you've been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation, and then withhold the solution till the last possible moment. And so, with the performances of Heather Angel, Bramwell Fletcher, of Paul Lucas as Mr. Markham, Antique Dealer, we again hope to keep you in suspense.
This is the story of a man who commits murder and gets away with it. Does the idea shock you? Do you believe that justice must always be done? But let's be honest with ourselves. You and I needn't be cynics to know that justice is very seldom done. Innocence flinches. Guilt is childlike and bland. Innocence is imposed upon. Guilt can encompass all things, even a successful murder. And I know this because I was the murderer, you say? Oh, no. Inquire at Scotland Yard. I was the victim. In Bond Street, not far from Piccadilly, there used to be an establishment, which in a less fashionable part of town would have been called a shop. On the windows, in letters as discreet as a visiting card, were the words, Charles Markham, Antique Dealer. Such a delightful fellow, Markham. Such a character. 30 years ago, yes, as long as that, this antique shop was a dingy place, despite deep carpets and crystal chandeliers. It rustled with the ticking of 100 clocks. It was shadowed by damascened armor and the loom of tall tapestries. And late one summer night, when the shutters were long closed on those windows, a four-wheeler drew up before the door in the gas-lit street.
That's all, cabby. You needn't wait.
Very good, miss. Good night.
Good night. He must be here. He must be. I won't go back to that place. I'll kill myself first.
Oh, look here, old man. You needn't be... Oh, I beg your pardon.
And I beg yours. I'm not the person you were expecting, am I?
No, madam. As a matter of fact, I was expecting a police officer.
A police officer?
Oh, merely an old friend who often drops in for a talk and a drink.
You are Mr. Markham, aren't you?
Yes, my name is Markham. Can I be of any service to you?
I want to come in. I want to buy a present for somebody.
Now, really, madam, this is hardly the time.
Yes, I know it's late, but...
It's nearly 1 o'clock, madam. Surely tomorrow morning will be...
That'll be too late. This is a special occasion. It's a birthday present. That's it. A birthday present. I've got to deliver it before breakfast. And Sir George Lytle says this is the only place in London to buy antiques.
Sir George flatters me.
Won't you let me come in? Just for 5 minutes.
Well, under the circumstances, madam, I think it might be managed. Now, one moment while I put some lights on.
No. Please. That one little light will be enough.
But you won't be able to see anything.
That doesn't matter. I'll trust to your judgment.
Just as you like. This way, madam.
What's that? That noise?
Oh, you mean the clocks, madam? There are more than 100 clocks in this room. I'm very fond of them.
Don't they get on your nerves? Ticking away together like a nightmare? Striking the hours together?
They don't strike together, madam. When the hour approaches, you will hear a musical din that lasts for some time. Might I interest you perhaps in a clock?
No. I hate them.
Now, all the same, this grandfather clock might amuse you.
What about it?
Observe the signature. Johannes Carver, Londini, Facet A.D., 1752. You could see better, madam, if you raised that veil.
I'll keep my veil down, thanks.
Just as you please. But look at the clock. I open the glass face like this. Then I push the second hand forward like this, and...
1:00 and all's well. 1:00 and all's well.
What was that voice?
Only the clock, madam, nothing more.
The clock spoke.
Clever, isn't it? A device of old John Carver, anticipating Mr. Edison's gramophone by more than 100 years. Oh, but you don't like clocks.
No.
May I ask whether the present is for a lady or a gentleman?
It's for a man.
Oh, has he some knowledge of antiques?
Yeah. I mean...
furniture, perhaps. Porcelain, bronzes, tapestries, weapons.
He might be very much interested in weapons.
Then
Yes.
I imagine his name is Mr. Ronald Gilbert. Now, will you tell me, Miss Ray, why you really came here tonight?
So you know who I am.
Naturally. You are Miss Judith Ray. And why did you come here?
I wanted to see what sort of a man you actually were.
Oh, and have you found out?
No, but I won't go back to prison. I won't.
As you will. But since it's to be a business conference, Miss Ray, and I imagine it is,
Yes.
well, then suppose we go into my office, here at the back of the shop. Will you precede me?
Thank you.
Oh, you must excuse the dust covers I've put on the chairs here. I'm leaving for a holiday tomorrow, and the shop will be closed. When I return next week, Miss Ray, I shall expect the amount requested. In cash, of course.
But I can't raise 2,000 pounds. You ought to know that.
Well, your fiancé could raise the money, I imagine.
Ron? Do you think I'd have Ron know where I've been? Or what I've been?
It's better than having his father learn it, surely. Now, sit down, Miss Ray.
I'd rather stand, thank you.
Now, that's a very foolish gesture, but the ladies will do it. They think it gives them dignity and shows the disdain of the poor blackmailer. You see, I make no bones about it. I am a blackmailer.
You seem rather proud of yourself.
Why not? I am the one person in England, perhaps in the world, who has made it a large-scale business.
Congratulations.
And what is all lifeblood but blackmail? The child says, if you don't give me that, I'll scream. The grown woman says, if you go on behaving like this, I will leave you. Your sex, Miss Ray, are blackmailers from the cradle.
You know, Charles Markham, I wonder...
Yes?
I wonder if anybody's ever hurt you very much.
Hurt me? What do you mean?
When you talk about the world and people in general, your face goes white under the eyes. You pick up that letter opener from the desk.
Not a letter opener, please, Miss Ray. A Medici dagger. 16th century work.
It isn't the money that really interests you.
I don't understand.
You hate the world. You just want to torture people, that you think you've been tortured. Isn't that so?
This is a very sharp dagger, Miss Ray. If I throw it down on the desk, it sticks. Like that.
Isn't it so, Charles Markham?
My motives, Miss Ray, aren't in question.
I wonder.
Whereas your motives are. Now, let me see. 10 years ago, in 1903, a certain girl called Letty Wilson, your real name, I believe, fell in love with a rather contemptible underworld character named Arthur Akers.
Please.
No humiliation was too great for her. She worked for him, lied for him, stole for him.
I was only 18. I didn't know what I was
Now,
doing.
this girl, for a very shabby theft, was sentenced to 3 years hard labor at Holloway Prison. 5 months later, she escapes from prison and disappears. All these years afterwards, she appears in the West End as Miss Judith Ray, fashionable milliner.
Haven't I made up for it? Haven't I?
No.
For one mistake. After 10 years.
It's the way of the world, my dear. I didn't create it. And I'm forgetting the best part of the comedy. This paragon of virtue next falls in love with Mr. Ronald Gilbert, son of Major General Sir Edmund Gilbert. Such a respectable family, too.
Stop it, please.
Then, shall we say 2,000 pounds?
Suppose I did raise the money. I don't know how, but suppose I did raise it.
Well,
What guarantee would I have that you wouldn't ask for still more money?
I probably shall ask for more money, Miss Ray. But that's my privilege as a blackmailer.
Then I'm never going to be free of you. Is that it?
Well, frankly, that's it.
Unless I kill you, of course. What if I did kill you?
People have threatened it before, but they haven't meant it.
Maybe I mean it.
Well, we can easily test you out. There's a sharp knife stuck in the desk in front of you. I'm going to get up and deliberately turn my back on you. like this.
Be careful, Charles Markham.
As a student of human nature, I'm curious. How much will you risk to keep this secret? Have you the courage to kill and risk hanging?
Yes, I think I have. What was that?
Now, aren't you glad you held back at the last moment, Miss Ray?
I said, what was that?
That, my dear, was the front doorbell. Probably my friend, Inspector Ross, from Wigmore Street Police Station. Come in, old man. Come on in. Make yourself comfortable. I'll be with you in a moment.
You wanted me to attack you, didn't you?
No, I was merely curious. And in any case, Miss Ray, it would be useless to kill me.
Useless? Why?
Because I shouldn't die.
Don't talk rot.
Oh, it's quite true. A man in my position must take certain precautions. If you killed me, I should be back to haunt you within half an hour. And I don't happen to be joking. Come in.
Now, look here, Markham. Good Lord, Judith.
Ron!
Mr. Ronald Gilbert, as I live.
Ron, what are you doing here? He hasn't got anything against you, has he?
Speak up, Mr. Gilbert. Have I?
The fact is, Judith, I...
Look at him, Miss Ray. See how he changes color and twists his mustache and altogether resembles a boy caught in his mother's gem cupboard. Perfect picture of a gentleman being a gentleman.
Look here, Markham. I'm not very clever. You can always make a fool of me when you start talking, so let's stop talking. I've brought the money.
What money?
Oh, merely my fee for keeping quiet about you.
So you went to Ron, too. You told him about it.
Naturally. If possible, always sell your wares in 2 markets.
How much money?
Never mind, Judith. I hoped I could do this without your knowing.
How much money?
3,000. It's all I could raise.
Has he told you who I am and what I've been?
Look here, Judith. Who the devil cares who you are or what you've been? I happen to be in love with you. Never mind. Let's get out of here.
Ron, it's no good. He'll only come back for more money.
I know that, but what else can we do?
Nothing, I'm afraid.
Well, what's that knife doing there, stuck in the desk?
Nothing dangerous, I assure you.
No?
Merely a curio. I pick it up like this, I flip it down like this, and pick it up again. Miss Ray was very much interested in the dagger. Now, may I have that envelope with the money, please?
There you are. Take it.
Thank you. As I explained to Miss Ray, I'm leaving tomorrow for a holiday, hence the general disarray and the dust covers on the chairs. But before my departure, I'm glad we could settle this affair, as you would say, like gentlemen.
Before we clear out of here, Markham, there's just one favor I'd like to ask.
Well, of course, old man, ask away.
This is your job, I suppose. You can't help being what you are, but never again, as long as you live...
Well?
Never even say the word gentleman.
Be careful, Ron. Look at his face.
Tell me, Mr. Gilbert, how much money is in this envelope?
You heard what I said, 3,000 pounds.
Then take it back, my friend. I find we can't strike a bargain after all.
What do you mean?
Just what I say. Here is your money. You will now oblige me, both you and Miss Ray, by leaving my shop.
What are you going to do?
Tomorrow morning, perhaps even tonight, I'm going to get in touch with the police, and I shall tell them where they can find Letty Wilson, alias Judith Ray.
You can't do that, Markham.
Oh, yes, he can. You've hit him where it hurts.
3,000 pounds, my friend, is not enough compensation for the way you talk. There is a way through the shop. Shall I escort you to the front door?
No.
Oh, so you prefer to stay here and make a fool of yourself?
You're not going to tell the police, Markham. I promise you that.
And how are you going to stop me?
With this.
Run! Put that gun away.
It's a funny thing, Judith. I felt a bit of a fool, bringing this revolver along. But now I've got a use for it. Oh, yes, I've got a use for it.
Oh. Maybe the best thing would be to go into the street now and call a policeman.
You'll never get into the street, Markham.
Are you following me into the shop?
Yes.
So both of you, it appears, came here under false pretenses. You said you wanted to pay me some money.
The money's still here, but you've lost your chance to get it.
And our dear Judith said she wanted to buy a present for you. I showed her this grandfather clock here, this talking clock.
Don't go a step beyond that clock, Markham. I warn you.
Nonsense, old man. You wouldn't dare shoot.
Wouldn't I?
No, and I'll call your bluff. 1 step. 2 steps.
John!
I know you'll wholesale tried, my friend. You wouldn't risk it. No, you wouldn't. What's happening to me?
Don't try and grab onto the clock, Markham. It won't save you.
You wouldn't risk your life. You wouldn't risk your family position.
You wouldn't.
1:15 and all's well. 1:15 and all's well.
I had to do it, Judith. Don't you see? I had to do it.
Did you... Is he...
Oh, yes. Yes, he's done for. I tell you, I had to do it.
Shh, keep your voice down.
Why?
That shot sounded like the crack of doom. I wonder if anybody in the street heard it.
You mean the police?
Yes, Ron. What in heaven's name are we going to do?
Steady, steady. We'll find a way out.
Maybe he's not dead, Ron. Go and look at him.
He's dead, all right.
Please, Ron. Go and look at him. Well?
Shot through the heart. The bullet went clean through him and smashed the face of the grandfather clock. That's all I can see in this dim light.
This isn't happening to us. It can't be
I've
happening.
got to think, but it's hard to think. You see, Judith, I'm not in a rage any longer. I'm just numb and a little bit scared.
You're not going to give yourself up.
And have this whole thing made public? Not likely.
Wait a minute. There may be a way out.
What way?
He said he was going for a holiday. Remember?
Well, suppose he did.
That gives us time. It means his absence won't be noticed. The shop will be closed. Nobody will come here for days. And certainly nobody will come here tonight. And...
What's that?
The police officer. I forgot the police officer.
What police officer?
A friend of Markham's. Inspector somebody or other from Wigmore Street. He's inspected here tonight.
Then we're finished.
No, Ronnie. We're not finished. He can't see anything out there. The shutters are down and the door's covered. Could you pick Markham up and carry him?
Yes, I could. Why?
There must be a back way out of the shop, probably in the office. Hurry, Ron.
I don't like to touch him.
Hurry, Ron, please.
He's as heavy as a sack of meal. He seems to be looking straight at me.
I know. Everything here seems to have eyes and move a little in the shadow. Didn't you see the expression in Markham's eyes just before you...
No, I didn't.
He seemed to be looking behind us, or beyond us. I don't know how to describe it. And he said something, too, that scared me. He said he couldn't die. He said...
Close the door, quick. This police officer, Judith, he can't get into the shop, can he?
Of course he can. The front door isn't locked.
That's true. What's wrong with me, Judith? I came in there that way myself.
And there's no time to lock the front door now. Our only hope is through the back way. I thought I'd seen a back door and... Ah, there it is. Just a minute.
I've killed a man. That means I'm a murderer. A fraction of a second, one tick of a clock in there, and you change from an ordinary happy person into what I... Well, Judith, well?
I'm sorry, Ron. The door's locked.
Isn't there a key?
No.
Maybe in his pockets on a key ring.
There isn't time, Ron. I think I heard the front door open. Our visitor's coming in.
I've got it. The dust covers.
What?
Those white cloths that fit over the chairs. Look at them.
What on earth are you talking about?
We used to play a game when we were kids. Somebody sits in a big chair. You know, you fit the dust cover over him and nobody can tell he's sitting there. Don't you see, Judith? That's how we can hide Markham's body.
It might work if there's time.
There's got to be time. Take the big cover off that chair, the wing chair.
All right. Maybe there's a chance.
I'll fit him into it. Arms along the chair arms. Feet pushed back. Now, put the cover back again and pull it round down his feet.
Don't let it touch his chest. The blood will show through.
There, that's got it. You can't see anything now, can you?
No, but, Ron.
Well?
What did you do with the gun?
The gun?
The gun you shot Markham with.
Oh. Well, Judith, I put it down on the floor when I picked up his body.
Out in the other room?
Yes, I'm afraid so. And it's too late now, Judith. The police are here.
What are you going to say?
I don't know. Trust your wits and try and brazen it out. Yes? Come in.
Good evening, Miss Ray. And good evening, Mr. Gilbert.
Charles Markham? You're Charles Markham?
Correct, Miss Ray. But why should that surprise you? Why do you look as though you were seeing a ghost?
Because we are seeing a ghost. If you're Charles Markham, whose body is...
Judith, be careful.
Body, Miss Ray. Did you say body?
Miss Ray's upset. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
If you killed me, I should be back to haunt you within half an hour. That's what he said.
I tell you, Miss Raisin herself, she had bad news today. A relative of hers died. I've been trying to make her feel better.
Indeed. Do you think it would make her feel better to bring her here?
I don't understand.
My dear sir, you are very welcome. But the situation is surely a little odd. I come in here and find you two looking as guilty as a pair of murderers in my private office in the middle of the night.
There's nothing odd about that. I wanted to buy Judith something.
At 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Why not?
Well, may I ask how you managed to get in?
The front door was open. We just walked in.
If you wish to buy something, why not stay in the showroom? Why come to my office?
Well, hang it all. You don't think we wanted to steal anything, do you?
Well, that thought did occur to me. You see, there was nobody else here.
There's nobody here, Mr. Markham. Not a living soul.
Then you didn't meet, by any chance, my brother?
Your brother?
Yes, my brother Robert. You couldn't have mistaken him if you had seen him. He looks so much like me that few people can tell us apart.
Oh, so that's it.
Poor Robert often deputizes for me. He's learned to act like me, think like me, and talk like me. But he doesn't like the work very much. Of course, you know what my work really is.
Is this part of the game? Are you trying to play cat and mouse?
Robert is an idealist. He thinks, poor fellow, that my profession is beneath contempt. But he acts the part and acts it well because I pay him. And I find it useful to have a double who will run risks for me. What have you done with his body?
We haven't done anything with him.
If you've killed Robert, my friend, you've committed a totally useless murder.
You don't see him here, do you?
No, but I see his handiwork.
Meaning what?
I've warned him many times about throwing a knife down on a polished desktop. Those scratches on the desk are fresh scratches. Of course, if you give me your word of honor that he's not here...
Of course, he's not here.
Well, in that case, all we can do is sit down and make ourselves comfortable. Will you sit there, Mr. Gilbert? And you, Miss Ray, in that wing chair by the window. What's wrong, Miss Ray? Why don't you sit down?
Because I prefer to stand, thank you.
Then perhaps you won't mind if I sit in the wing chair. It's a very comfortable one. My brother always says...
Don't sit down there for the love
Oh. So that's it.
Yes, that's it.
It is rather a thick chair. I press against the dust cover and blood comes through. I lift the bottom of the dust cover and...
What's the use of going on with this? I killed him.
You admit that?
Yes, I admit it. But Judith had nothing to do with this. I swear she hadn't.
My telephone, you notice, is against the wall. I shall have to turn my back to you when I ring.
Ring? Where?
Wigmore Street Police Station.
Oh, no. Give him a chance. Please give him a chance.
Hello? Hello, operator. I want Regent 0586.
I won't let them take you on. I won't.
It's no good, Judith. I killed a man. I meant to kill him. That's all there is to it.
A very sensible attitude, my friend. And if the lady has any idea of flying at me with that knife, just notice what I've got here. A .32 revolver, one chamber fired, picked up off the floor in that room where...
Hello? Hello, Wigmore Street Police Station.
For the last time,
Hello?
Mr. Markham, won't you give him a chance?
Be quiet, Miss Ray. May I speak to Inspector Ross, please?
Inspector Ross speaking. Oh, isn't that Mr. Markham?
Got it in one, Inspector. Charles Markham here. I understand you were going to drop in and see me tonight.
I intended to, Mr. Markham, but I'm afraid I can't make it now.
Oh, why not? Anything wrong?
Only a robbery in Davies Street, but it's likely to be a long job. Sorry I can't get there.
Well, that's perfectly all right, Inspector, because actually I rang up to make sure you wouldn't come here tonight. You see, I've got a lot of work to do, and I'm leaving for Eastbourne early tomorrow morning. Let's make it some other time, shall we?
Oh, glad to, Mr. Markham. No crimes being committed up your way, I suppose?
No, Inspector. It's as quiet as the grave. I've never known a more peaceful night. Goodbye.
Why did you do that?
Now, please, don't excite yourself, Miss Ray. Didn't you hear what I told the inspector?
Yes, but is this some more trickery?
Trickery? How can it be?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you.
I should call it generous when I let my poor brother's death go unavenged.
You're not doing this without a reason.
Naturally not. But has it occurred to you, either of you, that I might not want my business dealings revealed in court?
What are you driving at?
And has it also occurred to you that a man's double, who looks exactly like him and shares all his secrets, may become a danger rather than an asset? He knows too much. He wants too much, and so...
I think I understand. You're glad he's dead.
Not glad, my dear. You shocked my brotherly feelings, but definitely relieved.
Look here, you can't get away with this.
Get away with it, sir? Aren't you forgetting that you are the murderer?
Then what are you going to do?
It is very simple. We three, in an unholy partnership, will dispose of Robert's body. Or would you rather hang?
He's got us, Ron. There's no other way.
But how can we dispose of the body? This seems worse than killing him. It's filthy, cold-blooded...
Practical necessity. And as for disposing of the body, nothing is easier. We shall simply gather and... And so, as I said before, this is the story of a man who commits murder and gets away with it. Now, Ronald Gilbert looks back across the years and is still firmly convinced of his own guilt. But, of course, Gilbert never shot anybody. I was the man who committed the murder. Don't you remember? The bullet that killed my brother is supposed to have passed through his body and smashed the face of the grandfather clock. But that's an impossibility. The face of a grandfather clock is much higher than the heart of a man. You see, 2 shots were fired at the very same instant. Gilbert missed and smashed the clock face. I fired from the door of the office and did not miss. That was why my brother looked past those 2. I went out by the back door, locked it, and reappeared at the front afterwards. It was not Robert Markham who died. I am Robert Markham. It was Charles who died that night. And I killed him to stop forever the wholesale blackmail that was poisoning the lives and blasting the hearts of 1,000 half-crazed people. His records I destroyed, his correspondence I burned. He is dead and gone. I have assumed his name and identity ever since. I committed a murder. And yet, if you sat on a jury, dare you say that you would condemn me? Come now. Would you?
And so closes Mr. Markham, Antique Dealer, starring Paul Lucas with Heather Angel and Bramwell Fletcher. Tonight's tale of Suspense. This is your narrator, the man in black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, when we will have the pleasure of bringing you Mr. Charles Lawton and Miss Elsa Lanchester, who will star in one of the most famous and suspenseful of Agatha Christie's thrillers, The ABC Murders. The producer of these broadcasts is William Spear, with Ted Bliss, the director, Lud Gluskin and Lucian Morowick, conductor and composer, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Heading our starring Hollywood cast this evening is Mr. Richard Dix, who appears as a United States naval officer who found himself in a remarkable predicament on what should have been an uneventful flight from New York to Philadelphia. As fellow passengers aboard the airliner are Miss Gail Page as a girl named Monica, and Mr. Montague Love, who plays that aged and domineering millionaire Silas Naylor. A story by John Dickson Carr called Death Flies Blind is tonight's tale of suspense. If you have been with us on these Tuesday nights,
you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion, dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation, and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. And so it is with Death Flies Blind and the performances of Richard Dix, Gail Page, Montague Love, and our other players, we again hope to keep you in suspense. LaGuardia Field, Municipal Airport of New York. LaGuardia Field, vast behind its white buildings. On a gray spring afternoon when rain splashes across the runways, dims the sky, and spatters on the wings of a great silver-painted airliner waiting beyond. Already as the limousine bus from the New York terminus slowly draws up to the waiting shed, you can hear the loudspeaker.
72, New York to Los Angeles.
The big limousine bus, besides its driver, contains only two persons. One is a tall young man in United States naval uniform, with the stripes of a lieutenant commander around his sleeve. The other is a tall and dark-haired girl, her face a little frightened in the gloom.
Flight 72, New York to Los Angeles. Plane ready to take off at gate number 6. Have your tickets ready, please.
Fred, that can't mean us.
Now, take it easy, Monica. We're not too late. They won't go without us.
No, I mean it says New York to Los Angeles.
That's right, Monica.
We're only going to Philadelphia.
You're still right, my dear. I arranged for a special stop at Philadelphia. It won't take long, and then they go on non-stop from there.
Fred, that's just it. Who's going on from there?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
This airport bus must hold 20 people, but there's nobody in it except ourselves and the driver. Who's going on to Los Angeles or anywhere else?
I was going to tell you about that, Monica.
All right, miss. All right, sir. Hop under that shed and out the door on the other side. Oh, got your tickets ready?
Yes, I've got them. All set, Monica?
The rain is certainly coming down. Do they take off when it rains like this?
Oh, miss, a little rain don't bother them. What does bother them is unsettled weather at other places.
You mean it's perfectly safe?
They never take off, miss, unless it is safe. You better hurry up now.
There's the plane, Monica. Shall we run for it?
Fred, I'd rather not run if you don't mind.
Aren't getting nervous, are you?
No. I know it's stupid of me. I've flown before. It's just those few seconds before the takeoff. You're moving and the motors have been idling. All of a sudden they start to roar. The plane races ahead and the roar gets louder and suddenly you think, am I ever going to get down alive?
Now, look here, my dear.
I'm sorry, Fred.
There's nothing to worry about, you know.
Of course not. I'll be good. It's just this dismal day and a ghostly bus without any passengers. Fred, look.
Where?
At the plane. They've got all the windows covered inside with little gray curtains.
Oh, that's all right, Monica. It's only a wartime measure.
Wartime measure?
Yes. Must keep those curtains closed for some minutes after taking off and before landing. So no one can make maps or take pictures of our airports.
Anything could happen up there, couldn't it?
No. And what's more, if you're worried about your fellow passengers, look over your shoulder.
Well, there are some people coming through the gate.
Yes, you see the little gray-haired man with the big fellow on each side of him? The secretary dashing around them like a destroyer in a convoy?
You know, I've seen that gray-haired man somewhere before.
You've seen his picture. That's Silas Naylor, the third richest man in the world. Those two big fellows are his bodyguard.
Does he need a bodyguard?
Well, not more than most of us, I imagine.
Fred, I don't like it.
Oh, nonsense, my dear. Come on now, up the steps of the plane. Give your name to the air hostess at the door. That's it.
Good afternoon, miss. May I have your name, please?
I'm Monica Vale. You're the air hostess?
That's right, Miss Vale. Take any seat you like. And you, sir?
Onslow, Lieutenant Commander Fred Onslow.
Oh, yes, Commander. We've had instructions about you. Happy to have you with us, even if it's only as far as Philadelphia.
Thank you.
May I take your overcoat or your briefcase?
Only the overcoat, please. I'll keep the briefcase.
Fred, look there.
What is it now?
That man you called Mr. Naylor's secretary. Light-haired man, rather good-looking. He's sprinting towards this plane as fast as he can run.
Well, he'd better be careful on that slippery surface.
He certainly has.
Look out, man. Look out, man. Watch your step. Look out. Well, are you all right? Here, let me help you up.
I'm all right, thanks. Perfectly all right. Air hostess.
Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Shepard. I'm Mr. Naylor's secretary, and I think there must be some mistake here.
Mistake, sir?
Yes. When Mr. Naylor travels, he's in the habit of booking every seat in the plane to ensure privacy. Yet we seem to have 2 extra passengers.
Well, I'm afraid that's my fault, Mr. Shepard.
Indeed, sir. Then would you and the young lady be good enough to take some later flight?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't do that.
No, and why not?
Maybe I ought to explain, Mr. Shepard, that Commander Onslow had last-minute orders to join his ship. He and Miss Vale have priority as far as Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Must we stop there?
Only for a few minutes, Mr. Shepard.
This is outrageous. Mr. Naylor is traveling, in a sense, on government business.
Well, so am I, old man. The Navy often does.
That doesn't alter the principle of the thing. I don't want to seem ungracious, you understand. Mr. Naylor is always glad to help our brave soldiers and sailors.
For the love of Mike. Now, choir will now sing hymn number 242. Now the
But
gorgeous
this
right
time you've
through.
gone too far. I shall appeal to Mr. Naylor himself. Mr. Naylor.
Yes, Mr. Shepard, I can hear you. What is it?
This naval officer, sir, and the young lady.
Oh, I know, Shepard, I know. Isn't the plane big enough for all of us?
I was only following your orders, Mr. Naylor. You asked for privacy.
All right, Shepard. What I'm asking for now is less noise. The lieutenant commander in the Navy, eh?
That's right, Mr. Naylor.
Off on another fishing trip, I suppose.
That's just exactly right, sir.
Ever have dyspepsia?
No, never.
Well, I have. 20,000 a year I pay doctors. And what do they give me? This stump. I'm not surprised you got priority, Commander, but I am a little surprised about the girl.
She's my fiancée. Mr. Naylor, Miss Vale.
Meet the rest of my family. These 2 bruisers here, including the one with the mouth organ, are my bodyguard, Mr. Cohen.
I'm pleased to meet you, Commander.
How do you do?
This is Mr. O'Reilly.
Glad to know you, Commander. How are things going? Hey, Cohen, don't you ever get tired of playing that mouth organ? Stand away from the doors. I want to close it.
Will everyone please take your seats and fasten the seatbelts?
Are we ready to take off?
Yes, in just a moment.
Shepard. O'Reilly. Cohen. Come along to the front of the plane.
Yes, sir.
Oh, we'll sit in the back here, won't we, Fred?
Yes, of course.
Fred, is anything wrong?
No, of course not. Why, what could be wrong?
Then you'd better sit down. We're starting to move.
That's good advice, Commander Onslow. But I must ask you, Miss Vale, not to touch the curtain on the window.
Oh, how soon before we can open the curtain?
As soon as we're well away from New York. You see that illuminated sign, no smoking, fasten seatbelts?
Yes. What about it?
When the lights in the sign go out, you can open the curtains and smoke as much as you like. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Certainly. You needn't try to fool me, Fred Onslow. I saw you.
You saw what?
I saw you pick up that scrap of paper one of those men dropped.
Why, that wasn't anything, Monica.
May I see the paper?
No.
Why not?
Well, because I'd rather you didn't see it, that's all.
There is something wrong, isn't there?
Look, Monica, let me repeat over and over. What could be wrong? Why, there's Silas Naylor, an internationally famous figure, with a group of trusted attendants. Here's an ACA plane as safe and dependable as the old gray mare. All the same,
All the same what?
I wish I hadn't brought you along. I wish there was some kind of an emergency cord, like a train, so that you could stop this plane whenever you have.
We're on our way.
"15 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The great silver plane throbs against dead quiet. It's warm and stuffy in the cabin, despite the hissing ventilators. Dim white reading lamps shine down on a double row of cushioned chairs along one side and a single row of cushioned chairs along the other. Ahead, above the closed door to the pilot's control cabin, the red glowing sign still warns against opening those curtains. Aft in the plane sits Commander Onslow, his eyes fixed on the clock under that illuminated sign.
Monica.
Yes? What?
It's not exactly all right.
Fred, why do you say that?
Because we should have been in Philadelphia 5 minutes ago. At least we should have been circling over the field.
And we're not?
No. Well, we're still 10 or 12,000 feet up if the pressure on my eardrums count for anything. And traveling like a bat out of Hades.
Weather's delaying us, I guess, huh?
Maybe it is.
It's awfully bumpy, isn't it?
Yes, a little.
Makes you gasp for breath and your stomach turns. Oh! That was a bad one.
Not getting airsick, are you?
I don't think so. I wish I had some of that chewing gum they give you.
Ring for the air hostess. She'll bring you some.
I did ring the bell, Fred, and there's no answer.
Oh, she's busy in the pantry back there, that's all. She didn't hear you. Here, I'll get you some gum.
No, wait, I'll go.
Sure you're all right?
I want a powder my nose anyway. Besides, you're going to have company. Mr. Shepherd is weaving along this aisle as though he didn't like air pockets either.
Well, thank the Lord one of that party's awake up there. I thought they were all dead.
Don't say that.
Say what?
Dead. A spooky plane with everything so quiet and dead itself. Remember how the pilot walked through a while ago and looked around and walked right back to the control cabin again?
No, I didn't notice him.
Well, that's what I mean. It was like a ghost. I'll be right back.
Say, Commander Onslow.
Yes, Mr. Shepherd?
Mind if I sit down?
Not at all. Go ahead.
Fact is, Commander, I want to apologize.
Oh, that's all right. Forget it.
I'm not such an ill-mannered guy as I must have sounded. It's no joke, you know, taking care of the chief. I've got to go ahead like a cyclone, so that everything would be quiet when he gets there. And it's a great responsibility, too.
I can imagine.
I go on these long trips. There's the chief, half asleep, and O'Reilly reading detective magazines and Cohen with his mouth organ.
Doesn't that mouth organ bother the old boy?
No, he likes it. Especially when Cohen plays the old square dances. Chief's a great man in his way.
I was just wondering about that.
Wondering what?
Is it true? Stop me if I'm talking out of turn.
Go ahead. We can trust the Navy.
Is it true he's offered to design and build, at his own expense, a fleet of underwater cargo boats, submersible freighters, up to 5,000 or 6,000 tons? That'll do away with the submarine menace altogether?
Where did you hear that?
Oh, just rumor. Is it true?
Yes, it's true enough.
You see, Mr. Shepherd, I'm one of the few people who believe that plan is practical. But there must be a lot of people who would like to see Mr. Naylor put out of the way.
There are, Commander. Only they can't get at him.
You're quite sure of that?
Dead sure. Hitler himself isn't better guarded. Why, you could no more shoot or stab or poison the chief than you could... What was that? What happened?
Monica? Is anything wrong?
Back there? Well, it's all right, sir. It's only a noise in the pantry. We'll see to it.
Monica, pull yourself together. What's wrong?
It's that air hostess, Miss Lee.
Well, what about her?
She's lying back in the pantry among the broken dishes with her head all over blood. Somebody beat her over the head and left her there to die.
Somebody?
Yes.
But nobody's gone back to the pantry. Nobody's gone past us
except the pilot or co-pilot of this plane, remember?
Excuse me, Mr. Shepherd. I'm going to open the curtains on that window.
Do you think it's wise, Commander? We were told not to.
Well, we were told a lot of things. I'll just take the responsibility of... Good Lord! There, Monica. Mr. Naylor!
Yes, son? What's up?
Draw the curtain on your window and take a look down. If O'Reilly and Cohen have got guns, they better keep them handy.
Is that so now? Why?
Because we're not flying west. We're over the Atlantic Ocean now and headed straight out to sea.
Gray water, thin clouds. We must be miles and miles away from land.
We are miles away from land. Does anybody here know anything about first aid?
I do, Commander. I studied medicine in the old days.
Then you better go back and look after the hostess. You'll join Mr. Naylor. Steady, Monica.
Well, I'm all right. It's this horrible blind feeling, that's all.
Air pocket, look out.
See here, Commander. We're over the ocean. What the devil's going on here, eh?
You're being kidnapped, Mr. Naylor. That's my guess.
Kidnapped, did you say?
Ah, come off it, Commander. We ain't as dumb as that.
The pilot and the co-pilot of this plane are fakes. They've replaced the real officer. On a dark day like this, with their raincoat collars turned up, they could have gotten away with it.
And hijacked us straight off the airfield. Is that it?
Yes, I'm afraid so. The hostess must have spotted one of them and knocked her out.
Now, what about the Air Force? Wouldn't they know a plane was missing?
Well, not until we failed to show up at Philadelphia. The pilot would report by radio telephone about, 15 minutes out of New York. But after that, silence.
Excuse me, Commander. You say these two fake pilots are still aboard? In that compartment there with the closed door?
Yes, that's right.
Well, what are we waiting for, Cohen? Can we get to work on them?
You said it, Barney.
Now, wait a minute, both of you.
You wouldn't be trying to stop us, would you, Commander?
The one thing we don't want is a gunfight 12,000 feet up. Can any of you fly a plane?
No, not one of us.
Well, neither can I. So if anything happens to those two pilots, how are we going to get down?
I see, young fellow. Well, what are you going to do?
First of all, we'll try rapping on the door. Have your gun ready.
You can count on that, sir.
Fred, listen to me.
Be quiet, Monica.
Has this anything to do with the scrap of paper you picked up off the floor?
What scrap of paper,
Oh,
Commander?
never mind, sir. Why, this door, it's unlocked.
Unlocked?
Now, don't take any fool chances, young fella. The way I always did when I was your age. Stand to one side when you open that door. Let Cohen and O'Reilly take care of it.
Good Lord. Well, the control cabin is empty. There's nobody at the controls.
You mean we're flying without a pilot?
Yes. See that stick move back and forth? As though a ghost had hold of it?
Those crooks do.
They set the automatic controls. It's a gyroscope attachment that keeps her steady. And then they must have bailed out.
And what's going to happen to us?
You see, Monica, the fact is...
Go on, Fred. Tell me the truth. I'll know if you don't.
Well, we'll go on until our gas runs out or until a storm hits us. Then we'll dive into the sea. It's as good a way of killing Mr. Naylor as any.
I see, son. Have we got any chance at all?
Frankly, I don't know. Wait till I get a look inside of that control cabin.
Holy Mother, that's done it.
Cohen, stop it. Stop it!
Yeah, Mr. Naylor?
Stop playing that infernal mouth organ. Or if you must play it, play something cheerful.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Naylor, sure. How long do you think it'll be before we...
Quiet, Cohen. Here's the commander back again. Well, young fella.
The radio telephone's out of order. We can't signal.
Fred, what about those patrol ships? You said they're 200 miles out to watch for unidentified aircraft. Won't they see us?
They've seen us already, I expect. They'll send for an Army fighter plane to investigate, but... Oh, what can it do?
Yeah. Shoot us down, maybe, huh? That's fine.
If only somebody could fly the plane.
Well, nobody can, Skipper, so think of something else.
See, Mr. Naylor, I was wrong.
Wrong, son? About what?
One of your party, and I can guess which one, dropped a torn piece of paper. There was a line of writing on it, probably the end of some instructions.
Well?
Those instructions ended, you should land just as your fuel fails at 7 o'clock a.m.
You should land just as your fuel fails at 7 o'clock a.m. But that might not have anything to do with this, son. What made you suspicious of it?
Because it was written in German.
In German?
Quiet, Cohen. I can't hear myself think.
Okay, Mr. Naylor. I'm sorry.
I thought the fake pilots were kidnapping you, maybe abroad.
There's not enough fuel for that, is there?
Well, if there's enough fuel for Los Angeles, then there's enough for Europe. Well, that won't work. They bailed out and left us to crash.
Excuse me, sir, but it's getting black as pitch out there. I think there's a storm coming up. What happens when that hits us?
Plenty, O'Reilly. Plenty.
Yeah, well, I was afraid of that.
If only somebody could fly this plane, I could navigate it.
Navigate it?
Yes. You have to learn aerial navigation in my business. With enough figuring, I might even set a new course and try the automatic controls on it. No, I don't dare handle the ship.
Wait a minute. I know a way out of this.
Well, then speak up, miss. There's a 90-mile wind going to hit us any minute.
The air hostess, of course.
Miss Lee, what about her?
I remember reading somewhere that most air hostesses get flying instructions when they've been with the company for a given length of time.
You know, Miss Vale, that's true. There was a girl of Inter Airways who told me the same thing.
And if this one can even make a try at landing a plane, we may get back to New York yet.
I thought you said she'd been knocked out.
Well, she isn't badly hurt, but there's just a chance that maybe she's...
There's Shepard, coming back from the pantry.
Anybody got a drink? Wasn't very pleasant back there.
How is she? You know, we were just wondering whether Miss Lee might be in any shape to pilot the plane.
Pilot the plane? Why in blazes should she pilot the plane?
There's no time to explain now, Shepard. But we're bound for Davy Jones unless something's done. Could she do it?
No.
Not even if we revived her?
Not if all the doctors on Earth stood at her side.
Why, but I
don't think you understand, sir. Miss Lee has just died.
Thin singing of wind above the clouds, then storm with a white eye of lightning at the windows,
Losing height, gaining it again, blown off her blind course, flung partway back again, always racing forward on a flight to nowhere. Late afternoon, evening, night, the steady throbbing of motors like a pulse beat inside the head. Towards morning, the storm dies away. In that dim cabin, there is exhaustion of nerves. The hands of the clock stand at 1:45 in the morning.
Monica, wake up.
What? Oh.
Shh. It's Fred. Now keep your voice down.
Have I been asleep?
Yes, for a couple of hours.
They say condemned criminals sleep on the night before their execution. Where are the others?
I was a boy back home in the county down there. My father used to say to me, "Barney O'Reilly," says he, "did you ever see a banshee? A banshee," says he, "is the old woman that lets you know when you're going to die."
Pipe down, you two.
I'm sorry, Mr. Naylor.
No offense, Chief.
Can a man play a quiet game of solitaire without somebody yapping all the time? Black 9 on red 10.
Listen, Monica, and listen carefully. My first idea was right after all.
What are you talking about?
There's somebody aboard this ship who can fly a plane. Shh. There is. I proved it by the automatic controls.
Proved it how?
If those controls had stayed as they originally were, the side winds would have blown us clear off our course. But we're still on our course. That shows that somebody's been sneaking in there and setting us right again when we do stray.
Then you mean...
I mean that we're headed for somewhere. We're being taken somewhere. But we may outwit this gentleman yet.
Outwit who?
Is somebody still talking back there?
I'm sorry, Mr. Naylor. Monica's just waked up. None of us can feel very much like sleeping anyway.
You're right, son. I admit it. Come up here and join me, will you?
With pleasure.
I've cheated myself in this twice in this card game, but I still can't make it come out. Oh, what's the use pretending anyway? We know we're in for it. It's this waiting that gets you.
Yeah, that goes for all of us, Mr. Naylor.
What I'm dreading is the minute when those motors choke and go dead, and we start whirling down. What does it sound like, Commander, when motors conk out?
I've never heard it, Mr. Naylor, but I imagine it sounds like...
Listen.
I imagine it sounds like that.
We're losing height. I can feel it.
Well, Cohen, I guess this is the payoff.
Yeah, you said it.
But look here, Mr. Naylor, we can't be out of fuel.
Because it's too early. Look at the clock. It's only 5 minutes to 2 o'clock.
I beg your pardon, old man. It's 5 minutes to 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? Are you crazy?
No. Haven't you forgotten the cross-ocean changes in time?
By George, the commander's right.
European time is 5 hours ahead of our time. If you don't believe me, just notice that it's getting daylight outside. I was thinking of that message. You should land just as your fuel fails at 7 o'clock a.m.
Stand perfectly still, all of you.
Yeah, what's got into little Lord Fauntleroy?
I'll show you what's got into me, my friend.
Yes, I rather thought you would.
I shall go into that control cabin. Follow me if you like. I shall sit down at the controls, and I shall bring this plane safely to the ground.
Safely to the ground? Where?
In Germany, of course.
Germany?
Don't pull a gun, Cohen. If you plug him, we're all done for.
That is good advice, Mr. Cohen. I might add that we're getting closer to the ground every minute.
For the love of...
Do I take control?
Yes, go ahead, but we're following you.
Follow by all means. All right. Let's get comfortable here. I take up my position, so.
There's fog below. Can you see?
Well enough, Miss Dale. Well enough. We must go down rather quickly. And I can't help if it's somewhat rough on your ears.
You young swine, what's the idea?
The idea, dear patron, is to bring you and your plans for a submarine freighter to a country which will appreciate them.
Then those two fake pilots?
They were colleagues of mine. Unfortunately, if they had remained, your pug uglies would have started a gunfight, and none of us might have got here.
Well?
So they left by parachute. And I brought you safely, without blood or toil, into the boundaries of the Third Reich.
You're going down too fast, man. Now take it easy.
I am perfectly in command, thank you.
Look out!
The trees,
Look out,
they're coming
man.
straight up at us.
you all right, Monica? Are you all right?
Yes. Oh, only a bit shaken up.
We're all okay here, Skipper. Shall I give this guy the works now before they come to get us?
No, don't shoot. Let him alone.
That also is good advice. And now, my friends, my mission is ended. I stand up on the pilot's chair. I throw open this glass hatch. And to all Germany, to all the world, I cry.
Dies ist das gestohlene Flugzeug im Begriff zu landen auf Feld Nummer 21. Heil Hitler!
Well, strike me blind if it ain't another one.
Yes, first Rudolph S. and now this bloke. What do you suppose they want over here?
English. Why are you speaking English?
Why, Cocky? It's an heathen habit we've got in this country.
This isn't England.
Oh, yes, it is. Better climb out of here and with your hands up.
But it can't be. I followed the course laid down on those instruments.
Unfortunately, old man, I altered our course last night.
Keep back, Shepard, or you may get a bullet in the head yet.
Your instructions were all right, but they didn't tell you about the 5 hours difference in time. When we got to the right navigation point, I let the fuel out of the tanks and made you think we were landing in Germany. You know, there's nothing like having a good Nazi for a taxi driver, is there?
And so ends Death Flies Blind, starring Richard Dix with Gail Page and Montague Love. Tonight's tale of Suspense. This is your narrator, the Man in Black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, same time, when Mr. Paul Lucas will star in the suspense play called Mr. Markham, Antique Dealer. Ladies and gentlemen, on the following Tuesday, May 18th, Mr. Charles Lawton and Miss Elsa Lanchester will be with us in one of the most famous of Agatha Christie's thrillers, The ABC Murders. William Spear, the producer, Ted Bliss, director, Lud Gluskin and Lucian Mahowick, the conductor and composer, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. This is the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. In our starring Hollywood cast this evening is Mr. Peter Lorre, who appears as a mysterious gentleman called George Ravel. Miss Wendy Berry plays our worried heroine, Marjorie. Mr. George Zuko is the lawyer, Alex Stevens. The story called The Moment of Darkness is tonight's tale of suspense. If you have been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation and then withhold a solution until the last possible moment. And so, with The Moment of Darkness, and with the performances of Peter Lorre, Wendy Berry, George Zuko, and our other players, we again hope to keep you in suspense. The Train Bleu crack express train from Paris to the French Riviera, which in these carefree days before the war used to make the journey from Paris to Nice overnight. At the Gare du Sud on this particular mild spring evening, the train with its glistening wagon-lits or sleeping cars
waits in a station filled with smoke and the iron coughing of engines. You can hear the excited crowd and the slamming of compartment doors. You can see the guard standing by with his watch in hand, with his horn ready to blow as a signal.
En voiture, messieurs les voyageurs! En voiture!
Better get in, Emily. The train just about ready to start.
Commotion there. At the last moment just before the signal, a girl in a light summer dress, carrying a small suitcase, hurries along the platform towards car number 10. The girl is blonde and evidently English, and as she hurries towards the guard...
En voiture! Dépêchez-vous, mademoiselle. Hurry up, please.
Oh, yes, of course. Is this carriage number 10?
Oui, mademoiselle, numéro 10. Hurry up, please.
Thank you. I'll get in.
Et maintenant...
Must be at least a mile long. Car 10. Compartment number 6. Compartment number 6. Compartment... Oh, here it is.
Yes, come in.
Mr. Stevens, Oh, I beg your pardon.
That's quite all right. Won't you come in?
I thought this was Mr. Stevens' compartment.
It is his compartment. I'm sharing it with him.
He is on the train, isn't he?
Oh, yes. He's going to look for some luggage that failed to turn up. In the meantime, won't you come in and sit down?
Thank you.
As an old friend of Toby Stevens... Why do you smile?
Nothing. It's just odd to hear a dignified man like Mr. Stevens called Toby. That's all.
Well, it suits him. As an old friend of his anyway, may I introduce myself? I'm Ken Blake, on vacation from the American consulate in London.
How do you do? My name is Gray, Marjorie Gray. I most particularly wanted to have a word with Mr. Stevens.
Miss Gray, will you pardon my impertinence if I ask...
Ask what?
Whether it's about your Aunt Hester at Monte Carlo and the man who seemed so determined to scare her to death.
You know about that?
Yes, a little. After all, that's why Toby's left his law practice and come all the way from London. He said...
Mr. Stevens.
Marjorie. Great Scott, what are you doing here?
I came up from Monte Carlo, especially to see you. I thought I'd find you in Paris, but when I got to your hotel, they told me you'd gone. Cook said they'd reserved a compartment on this train for you. So, well, here I am.
But why?
Before you see Aunt Hester, Mr. Stevens, I want to know what you meant by that letter you wrote me.
I meant exactly what I said, Marjorie. I'm going to expose this faker, George Revel.
Excuse me, if you two want to talk, I'll just clear out of here.
Oh, no, Ken, stay where you are.
Really, Mr. Stevens?
You've made an impression on her, Ken. When the girl suddenly becomes thoroughly British after spending half her life on the Riviera, well, you've made an impression.
Don't talk like that, Toby. She won't get annoyed with you for saying it. She'll just get annoyed with me.
Marjorie, this is Ken Blake.
We've met, thanks.
I asked him to come along with me, and for a very good reason.
Indeed?
Ken was for years at the American consulate in Paris. He knows all the heads of the Sûreté Générale, that's the Scotland Yard of France. And in particular, he knows the great detective Flamand, who's the chef de Sûreté. I thought Ken might be very useful when we nab Revel.
But I tell you, Revel is dangerous.
Dangerous, my eye.
Something's going to happen. I know something dreadful's going to happen.
Now, let's face the situation, Marjorie. Your Aunt Hester is middle-aged, wealthy, and,
Oh, if only Uncle Paul hadn't died. He was the decentest person I ever knew.
But he did die, my dear, and Hester can't be consoled. She can't eat, she can't sleep, she can't think of anything except getting in touch with his spirit. Along comes this faker Revel to give seances.
I wonder if he is a faker.
You're not falling for this Tommy rot, surely?
Really, Mr. Blake, if I'd asked for your advice in this matter...
I beg your pardon, Miss Gray. When we get to Nice, I'll take the first train back to Paris.
No, wait, please. I didn't mean to be rude. It's nice of you to help us, but it's the whole atmosphere of Monte Carlo.
Well, that's quite all right, my dear. We understand.
Of course.
There's Aunt Hester in that villa over the Mediterranean. There's Revel, all thin and quiet and swarthy, with those somber-looking eyes of his. He seems to dominate her, just as Mr. Stevens used to.
Dominate her, my dear? That's rather a strong word for an easygoing old buffer like me.
The things Revel does at those seances are terrifying. I don't know whether he's an imposter or not, but I am sure nobody else can do what he does.
Now there, Marjorie, is where you're wrong. I can.
You can?
Yes. I promise to duplicate in front of your aunt every single trick Revel ever performed.
Oh, but that's impossible.
Is it? Wait and see.
I'll put it up to Mr. Blake.
It isn't merely that Ravel is tied up, tied hand and foot in a chair, while these horrible things are going on. I know there are people who can get out of ropes and back into them again. But Ravel lets you take one precaution that shows there can't be any trickery.
Oh? And what is that precaution?
Just before the lights go out, he takes a piece of white paper.
Well?
He puts one under each foot. You take a pencil and draw an outline around the shoe on the paper. If he moved the millionth fraction of an inch, it would show in the outline later. But it never does.
Well, look here, Toby, that's a bad one. Why does it strike you as being so funny?
Because I can do it, too. Just give me a moment of darkness, that's all.
You mean he gets out of his shoes or something like that?
No, he could hardly get out of his shoes and back into them without disturbing the outline.
Then he doesn't leave his chair after all.
On the contrary, he can be all over the room.
Well, how in Satan's name does he do it?
My dear fellow, there's nothing simple.
The Villa Bijou, Monte Carlo, the next evening. On the lighted terrace, that white villa, overlooking the olive groves and the sea, 3 people are seated at their ease, enjoying the night air. Below glitters the town, a white palm garden. But even its lamps are dimmed by the firework illuminations from the Promenade des Anglais. When the Principality of Monaco celebrates its ruler's birthday, great rockets go hissing upwards to burst and bloom in colored fires against a black sky.
I don't like those fireworks. The noise upsets me. I wish they'd stop.
Never mind the fireworks, Hester. You've heard my proposition. Give me an answer.
Oh, what's more, you spilled broth on your jacket at dinner. You're the clumsiest eater I ever saw. Here. Let me take a handkerchief to it.
Please, Aunt Hester, won't you answer Mr. Stevens?
Why don't you two let me alone, both of you?
We're only trying to help you. Don't you believe that?
Oh, yes, I believe it, but I'm happy. I talked with my husband twice last week.
Now, look here, Hester. This has got to stop.
Why?
Ravel's a fraud, and I can prove it.
If Monsieur Ravel is a fraud, what does he gain by this? Has he not asked for money?
I don't know, has he?
No, not a penny.
You haven't changed your will by any chance. People do queer things sometimes that even their solicitors don't know about.
Oh, no, dear, I haven't changed my will. When I die, Marjorie inherits everything. I am a lonely woman. I'm getting old. I haven't got much to look forward to. Now, why don't you go your way and let me go mine?
Suppose Ravel is a fraud. Just suppose it.
Well, all right, have your way.
You wouldn't like to think you'd been deliberately tricked and imposed on now, would you?
Oh, no.
Now, listen, Hester. If I prove to you these so-called miracles were really tricks that I can do myself.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Alex Stevens.
I offer to prove that here and now. Would that shake your faith a little?
Yes, I suppose it would. But how did you become so clever all of a sudden?
How did you become so gullible all of a sudden? You used to scoff at this sort of thing. You used to be gay and lively and go to the casino.
Well, that was before Paul died. You're shivering, Marjorie. If you feel cold, put on a wrap.
I'm not cold. It's only...
Only what?
Oh, got a kind of presentiment that there's something dreadful hanging over us. I can't tell what direction it's taking or who's in danger. But I'm sure it's going to burst. Just as sure that...
By George, look at that rocket.
Yes. Red and gold stars. And a deathly white blaze like the life we're living. You can see every leaf in the garden. Every blade of grass.
And we can also see, look there, Ravel and Ken Blake coming up the path.
This Ken Blake, Mr. Stevens. Are you sure he's quite honest?
My dear Marjorie, Ken's all right. I've known him for years.
I thought he came here to help expose Ravel. But he and Ravel are as thick as thieves. What sort of game is going on here?
Game, mademoiselle? You spoke of a game?
Yes, Monsieur Ravel, I did.
So did I, friend Ravel. Are you ready for my demonstration tonight?
Demonstration?
In the seance room upstairs. You claim you can bring back the dead.
Pardon me, monsieur, I claim nothing. When I'm in trance, I cannot tell what happens.
But I can. I'm going to make ghosts walk by perfectly natural means.
You know, Monsieur Stevens, I don't understand your logic.
Logic?
Yes, you wish to, how do you put it? Expose me? But how will you expose me by these childish tricks? If I show you a counterfeit 10-pound note, Does that prove there's no Bank of England?
I'm not going to argue subtleties with you. You can always beat me there. I'm a plain, ordinary man with a little common sense to back me up.
No. Come on, my friend. Not an ordinary man, surely.
Just exactly what are you hinting at?
Yes, I'd like to know that, too.
Oh, Madame Hester, believe me, I didn't mean to upset you. I wouldn't upset you for anything.
No, I'll bet you wouldn't.
Well, I kiss your hand, Madame. I'm all apologies. Well, let this gentleman do what he likes. But I warn him, it is dangerous.
Dangerous? How is it dangerous?
That's the first time you've spoken, Mr. Blake. Why have you been so quiet?
Please, Marjorie, please now, be a good girl and stop interrupting.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aunt Hester, but he's been muttering to himself and moving from one foot to the other and looking guilty.
Confound it, I'm not looking guilty.
Aren't you?
No, it's a hot night. I don't like this business at all. Why will a seance be dangerous?
Why? Because we shall be tampering with evil forces.
Evil forces, my foot.
Oh, you doubt it?
Yes.
This brave Monsieur Stevens is challenging the unseen world. He's mocking at forces he does not understand. Believe me, monsieur, they are not mocked without danger.
I'll risk that, thanks.
Well, up in a seance room, with a door bolted on the inside, we shall be at their mercy. The evil forces, the elementals, will wax and grow strong. They can take us in their grip, as I take this walking stick and...
You've got strong hands, Monsieur Ravel.
The hands of evil spirits are stronger, much stronger.
I'm afraid. I wonder if we ought to do this.
I've been wondering the same thing. What does your aunt say?
Well, I don't know what to say. I'm so confused. And I want to break down and cry. I suppose we'd better do it, or Alex Stevens will never let me hear the end of it.
For the last time, monsieur, will you be warned of danger?
No.
Very well. Oh, Madame Hester.
Yes, Monsieur Ravel.
Do you believe that I'm an impostor?
No, dear, of course not.
But in your heart, you're not yet convinced.
Well, I don't know. I'm not such a fool as some people seem to think.
But if something did happen, something to show there are living forces beyond this world, it would convince you utterly?
Oh, yes, I suppose it would.
Then, shall we allow Monsieur Stevens to go on with his demonstration?
I have a feeling we shouldn't do this. Oh, I'm afraid.
Upstairs at the Villa Bijou, there is a small, bare, deeply carpeted room. Its only furniture consists of a round table, 5 chairs, and a large cabinet phonograph. There is only one door, and there are no windows. In one chair, a little way back from the table, sits Mr. Alexander Stevens. He is tied hand and foot, the outline of his shoes drawn with pencil on pieces of paper, so that he cannot move.
Now then, friend Raphael. Have you quite finished tying me up?
Oh, yes. Yes, and I bet you won't get out of these knots, sir.
Well, we'll see about that. Are the rest of you ready?
Yes, all right.
Oh, dear, I wish I'd put some smelling salts in my handbag.
Well, what do you want us to do now?
We'll have conditions exactly as they are for Mr. Ravel. I'll sit in this chair back from the table. You 4 sit round the table, clasping hands to form a circle.
All right, let's get on with it.
Ken, will you start the gramophone? I believe it's customary, Mr. Ravel, to have hymns played at the beginning of a seance to establish the proper frame of mind.
Yes, monsieur, that's true. You fool.
What did you say?
Oh, nothing, monsieur. Please continue.
Start the gramophone, Ken. When you've done that, turn out the lights on that switch by the door. Then join the circle. Clasp each other's hands tightly and don't let go unless...
Unless what?
Well, unless something gets me.
Be careful, monsieur.
Go on, please. Start the gramophone.
All right, here goes.
Now the lights, Ken. Switch off the lights.
Lights? Yes. There you are. It's pitch dark. I can't see my way back to the table.
Here, Ken. Here's my hand.
Thank you.
Mine
Thanks.
on the other side, Mr. Blake.
Thank you. I've got my bearings now.
Are all of you clasping the hands of the next person? Then quiet and wait for what's going to happen.
Ken, look.
Look where?
Over there, where Mr. Stevens is sitting.
What about it?
There's a luminous spot in the dark, about the size of a shilling.
Shh. Quiet, please.
Did anything touch the back of your neck?
No.
Ah! What was that?
It's Alex Stevens. I know it.
This was not on a program, madame. Break the circle and get those lights on.
The luminous spot is still there. Oh, hurry, Ken.
I can't see my way in the dark. I don't know which direction the lights are. Wait a minute. Here's the wall. If I grope along here, I ought to find the switch. Yes, here it is. Lights.
Quiet, silence, mademoiselle, if you please.
What's wrong with Mr. Stevens? What's that sticking out of his chest?
It's the handle of a dagger. And a good deal of blood has soaked through his coat, too. Oh, Monsieur Blake, will you turn off this gramophone?
Yes, certainly. But you're not saying that Toby Stevens is dead?
I'm afraid he is, my friend. That's a direct heart wound. Perhaps 10 seconds of intense agony, and then the end. Oh, is the door still bolted from the inside?
Yes.
Then we are all alone, here, the 4 of us. This rash gentleman, one imagines, did not kill himself. He's too well tied up.
I know who killed him. Mr. George Ravel. You did, with luminous paint.
I killed him, mademoiselle? With luminous paint?
I mean, that was part of the trick. You tied him up. You were the only one who touched him.
And? What of that, mademoiselle?
Luminous paint doesn't show up in the light. You smeared a little of it on his coat. That showed you exactly where to strike in the dark.
I commend your good sense, madame. But there are 2 excellent reasons why I had nothing to do with this. The first reason I must keep to myself, but the second reason can easily be proved.
Well, what is it?
Well, up to the time that man screamed, you yourself were holding my right hand, and Madame Hester was holding my left hand. Did either of you let go at any time?
No. No, that is, I didn't. What about you, Aunt Hester?
No, Marjorie, dear. I didn't let go either. He never moved.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Well, monsieur, speak up.
I was holding Marjorie's hand on one side and her aunt's on the other. And they didn't move either. Nobody let go or left the circle.
That's true.
Consequently, none of us could have killed Toby Stevens.
Yes, it is true.
Somebody must have sneaked in here.
Oh, no. As you said yourself, the door is bolted on the inside.
Then who the devil did kill him?
Well, that's the question. Has anybody ever seen that dagger before?
No. It looks like one of those curio things you buy in the shops.
Yes, and with the design of wooden scroll work on the handle. No fingerprints will show. Nothing else, except some musical instruments. A tambourine, an accordion, and a speaking trumpet. You know, I blame myself for this.
You ought to.
Why?
Because you killed him. Don't ask me how, but I know why.
Indeed, mademoiselle. You found my motive.
Yes, I have. You've got Aunt Hester fully believing in you now, haven't you?
Easy, Marjorie.
In another minute, you'll be talking about forces and elementals and heaven knows what. You'll be saying it was a spirit hand that killed Mr. Stevens, because nobody else could have.
Please, Marjorie, brace up. Someone's got to send for the police.
Why don't you send for the police, Ken? Couldn't you help us there?
Help you? How?
Mr. Stevens said you knew the heads of the Sûreté. He said you knew this man Flamand, who's supposed to be the greatest detective in France.
Oh, but this isn't French territory. Monte Carlo is the independent state of Monaco.
I'm sorry, Marjorie. Ordinarily, I might have helped.
You mean you won't help us?
I'm sorry, Marjorie. I can't.
Then I've got to help myself. George Ravel, you killed Mr. Stevens. But how?
Yes, how?
24 hours later, 24 hours of blind puzzling. In the railway station at Nice, 9 miles from Monte Carlo, the night express for Paris is already underway. The guard has blown his signal, and the great wheels grind. A young man, hatless and worried, pushes through the crowd past the already moving train.
Non, monsieur. C'est défendu. Vous êtes trop tard.
Too late, nothing. I'm getting aboard this train.
Prenez garde, monsieur. Prenez garde.
I'm sorry to have caused you any trouble, guard. But do you happen to know whether... Marjorie.
Ken Blake. What are you doing on this train?
Exactly the question I wanted to ask you. Walk along the corridor with me, will you?
All right.
Marjorie, you little idiot. What's the idea of running away?
If it's any of your business, Mr. Blake, I'm not running away. I'm merely going to Paris.
You were told to stay in Monte Carlo. Don't you know you can land in jail for this?
They'll put you in jail, too, won't they?
Yes, I suppose so. But what's the idea of going to Paris?
First of all, I had to get Aunt Hester away from that man, Ravel. She really thinks he can call up ghosts now.
Is your aunt on this train?
Yes, in that compartment there. Second, I'm going to Paris for some real help. I'm going to the Sûreté. I'm going to see this man, Flamande.
You won't find Flamande in Paris, Marjorie. And you'll certainly never get him to arrest Georges Ravel.
Oh? And why not?
Because, my dear idiot, Georges Ravel is Flamande.
What are you saying?
The man who calls himself Ravel is really Flamande, the head of the whole French Detective Bureau. He made me promise not to tell anybody.
Oh, then that's why you've been looking so guilty for 2 days.
Yes, I tried to tip you off today, but the police were with us all the time.
So he is a fake spiritual medium. Mr. Stevens was right about that. And I still say I'm right about the other thing. Whoever he is, Ravel killed Mr. Stevens.
But how and why?
Oh, I don't know. This alleged detective. Did he tell you why he was masquerading as a medium in Monte Carlo?
No. All I know is that we're in one sweet mess. We've left town without permission. They'll probably stop the train and send us back in a patrol wagon.
Oh, no, my friend. That won't be at all necessary.
Ravel!
Yes, mademoiselle. Ravel or Flamande. Well, since you know me as Ravel, call me that.
You knew that I was on this train?
Oh, naturally.
Look here, old man. I kept quiet about you because you swore it was a matter of life and death. But will you answer a couple of questions now?
Oh, with pleasure.
Why did you pose as a medium?
Because the Moroccan government employed me to trap a murderer. So I had to work, how do you say, undercover.
All right. Why was Toby Stevens killed?
Stevens was killed because he was a blackmailer.
A blackmailer?
Yes, mademoiselle. Does that surprise you?
Yes. Oh, yes, of course. Very much.
I tried to warn Stevens, but the fool wouldn't listen. And then, well, I wasn't quick enough. Stevens was murdered, of course, by one of us four in the seance room.
Well, that's impossible.
Impossible? Oh, no. The trick was baffling because of its simplicity.
I'm sure you killed him.
One moment, mademoiselle. Let me show you what I mean by trick baffling because it is so simple. Take, for example, the pencil outline drawn on a paper around the medium's shoes. Did Stevens tell you how I did that?
No. On this train 2 nights ago, he started to tell us, but...
Then he just stopped in the middle of it and laughed.
You see, the medium leaves his chair. Well, he makes tambourines rattle and ghost forms appear. Yet the pencil outline is not disturbed. Now, how does he manage it?
Well, how does he manage it?
Well, quite easily. He returns to his chair. He turns over the 2 pieces of paper. He takes another pencil and draws an outline of his shoes on the reverse side of the paper. You look at it.
And imagine it's the same outline we drew.
Precisely. So easily are people misled. And it was the same way with a murder.
But there couldn't have been any trick about the murder. None of us left the circle. We were all clasping hands when we heard that scream. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes, I agree.
I can't stand this any longer. When we heard Mr. Stevens utter that horrible scream...
What makes you think it was Stevens who uttered that scream?
I beg your pardon.
What makes you think it was Stevens who screamed?
Well, wasn't it?
Oh, you assumed it, yes. We all assumed it. But up to that time, Stevens wasn't even hurt.
Wasn't hurt?
You see, the source of sound cannot be located in the dark. It was the murderer who uttered that appalling cry. In a few seconds of darkness, before the lights went on, the killer simply leaned across and drove that dagger into Stevens' chest.
And you proved that?
Yes. If Stevens had been hit at the time of the scream, blood would have blotted out the spot of luminous paint. Yet, Marjorie Gray saw the paint shining after the scream.
That's true, Marjorie. I heard you say so.
You put the luminous paint there, Ravel. You were the only person who touched him.
Oh, no. There was one other person who touched him.
Who was it?
Another person, in full sight of you, said Stevens had spilled broth on his coat and swabbed at his chest with a handkerchief.
You mean?
I mean, of course, the real murderer. Your Aunt Hester.
Yes, Marjorie. Your Aunt Hester.
Aunt Hester!
Keep back, all of you.
Oh, so you managed to find the revolver?
Marjorie, I poisoned your Uncle Paul. I poisoned my husband, and Alex Stevens knew it.
You can't get away, madame. Keep away from that door.
I never believed in spiritualism. I let myself be influenced by a medium because Alex Stevens would try to stop it. He was getting money out of me. He wanted no other influence.
Don't open that door, madame.
But I am opening it.
Oh, Aunt Hester, don't!
I told you I wasn't a fool as I looked. I had the knife in my hand.
Stop her, Kent! Stop her! Ah!
Well, mademoiselle, she has committed many crimes, but now she has paid for them all.
And so closes The Moment of Darkness, starring Peter Lorre, Wendy Berry, with George Zucco. Tonight's tale of Suspense. This is your narrator, the Man in Black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, when Agnes Moorehead and Ray Collins will star in a study in terror titled The Diary of Sophronia Winter. The producer of these broadcasts is William Spear, who with Ted Bliss, the director, Wilbur Hatch, and Lucian Morowick, conductor and composer, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This is the Man in Black, here again to introduce Columbia's program, Suspense. Our distinguished star this evening is the stage and screen favorite, Mr. Paul Lucas, whose performances in The Lady Vanishes and in the stage production The Watch on the Rhine you will recall with pleasure. Tonight's tale of suspense is a story by John Dickson Carr, Fire, Burn, and Cauldron Bubble. If you've been with us on these Tuesday nights, you will know that suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are tales calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. And so with Fire, Burn, and Cauldron Bubble and the performance of Paul Lucas and the other members of our company, we again hope to keep you in
Drury Lane Theater presents the distinguished American actor Myron Willard in Shakespeare's Macbeth, with magic effects especially designed by Ludwig von Arnheim.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble.
historic Drury Lane Theatre, a relic of old London. On this site, in the cramped and crooked lanes of Aldwych, there has been a playhouse since Nell Gwynn sold oranges in the pit. The present theatre, though modernized, is heavy and darkened with time. By daylight, it is a dinginess of red plush seats, haunted by old ghosts. But at night, when the lights bloom for some new production, when the murmur of a crowd fills the carpeted aisles and the orchestra begins to tune up, it is kindled with that strange magic before the rise of the curtain.
Right this way, sir. E12 and 13. Program. Chocolate.
Thank you.
No, madam. This is row E. Your seat's a G4.
And backstage, where nerves crawl and there is a tendency to spleen, the three witches of the play are huddled around the peephole in the curtain, looking out into the audience. They are hideous-looking creatures, these witches, in gray rags like cobwebs. But as they speak...
Dear, I am scared. Don't let it bother you, darling. You can't even see the audience when the floats are on. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing except the size of the take at the box office. You won't even have to worry about that tonight. Look out there.
You two are shaking as much as I am. Now, don't pretend.
All right, all right. Everybody's jumpy on first nights.
What I can't understand is why they want to use young girls as witches and then make us talk in cracked voices as though we were 80.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble.
What's that?
Katie, darling, it's only one of the ghost effects. You've been hearing it for weeks at rehearsals. I will say this for Myron Willard, as an actor and a manager, too. He's the first one who's ever had a real professional magician to do the ghost effects for this ham show.
Oh, Ivy, Celia, look there.
Where?
Out in the audience in the second upper box on the left-hand side.
Oh.
Don't you see the woman who's just coming in?
Yes, I can see her. Not a bad-looking bit of goods for her age. What about her?
But that's Marcia Blair.
Marcia Blair?
You don't mean you've never heard of her?
I can't say I have either, if it comes to that. Move over, Ivy. Give us a squint.
Marcia Blair used to be Mr. Willard's leading lady. She was a very great actress 15 years ago.
Oh, 15 years ago.
She's had a terribly romantic history. Well, she's made lots of money and retired from the stage. Then she married some horrible no-good, and... Did you see that tall gray-haired man standing beside her?
Well, he doesn't look much like a no-good.
That's not the man I mean, Celia. That's Howard White, her second husband.
Oh.
They say he loved her for years and followed her about and practically worshipped her. But she was married to this no-good and wouldn't get a divorce.
Then the no-good died, I suppose. So Marcia Blair and her faithful Howard got married.
Yes. I remember reading in the paper that they've been married 1 year tonight. I expect they're very happy.
Well, I'd be happy, too, if I had a mink coat and a string of pearls like that.
Well, you've got to admit she's beautiful.
All right, Katie, if you say so.
I used to go and see her act when I was a little girl. She was kind of an idol. I wonder what they're saying to each other up in that box now. I wonder what they're saying.
Dear, I wish you wouldn't be so uneasy. Nothing can happen to you here.
You're uneasy yourself, Howard.
Yes, I suppose I am a little.
Howard, I know I shouldn't be talking like this on our first anniversary, but that's what worries me. What if Barry isn't dead? What if he isn't dead?
Oh, listen to me, darling. Your late husband, heaven condemn his soul, died in New York more than a year ago. We have proof of that.
Well, then who wrote those letters to me?
I don't know, dear. Somebody playing a joke on you.
Joke? If you marry him, Marcia, you won't be alive a year from then. Joke.
But you're married to me, my dear, and you are alive.
Shall I quote you something from another play, Howard?
Well?
The Ides of March are come. I, Caesar, but not gone. And it's still 2 hours. 2 hours to the time we were actually married.
Oh, look here, dear. This is carrying an obsession too far.
It would be just like Barry to wait until the last moment, just to make it worse. You knew him.
Yes, I knew him.
He was a genius.
I suppose so. As a mere businessman, I never quite understood this theatrical temperament, except yours, of course.
Barry was a greater actor than Myron Willard will ever be. Barry could play anything, from a Cockney to King Lear. His skill at makeup wasn't merely good.
It was terrifying. Oh, Howard, I am frightened. Suppose he's managed to get close to us tonight, and yet we can't see him.
Well, the music started, Marcia. I shall have to go.
Must you go, Howard? Really?
If I break this appointment with Ferndale, dear, the deal will be called off. And since I haven't got too much backing anyway,
All right, dear. I understand. Go ahead.
Unless you wanted to come with me.
And Miss Myron's opening tonight? Oh, I couldn't do that.
I tell you, you'll be perfectly safe here, dear.
Of course, Howard. I know that.
You're in full view of 3,000 people. Nobody could attack you. The only door to this box is guarded. Outside that door will be Miss Fenton, who's devoted to you, and the chauffeur who's even more devoted to you. What could happen, dear?
Nothing, of course. And I'd prefer to be alone anyway.
Yes, I rather guessed
that. Oh, please, dear. It's just that I can't endure anybody being with me when I'm watching a great play. But that doesn't include you, darling.
Then, if you'll accept these, madam, in honor of our first anniversary.
Oh, Howard. Well, they're lovely. Of course I'll accept them.
And here's a program. Got everything else you need?
Yes. Yes, I think so.
I just opened the door to the passage to make sure our watchdogs are on guard. Yes, they're out there, all right. Good night, Marcia. See you in an hour or two.
Good night, Howard. And good luck.
Miss Fenton, Bradley.
Yes, Mr. White.
Yes, sir. Anything wrong? Miss Fenton, you've been my wife's companion secretary for 5 or 6 years.
Yes, Mr. White, and I've loved every minute of it.
And you, Bradley, you haven't been my chauffeur for quite so long, but they tell me you're an ex-wrestler.
That's right, sir. Champion of the Shoreditch Athletic Club. And in my prime, though I says it as shouldn't, as good a man as ever climbed through the ropes.
Now, you know your instructions, Bradley.
You trust me, sir. Nobody gets into this here box tonight unless it's over my dead body.
Nothing must happen, do you understand? Nothing.
Please, you're as white as paper.
As for you, Miss Fenton, I'm afraid it's a little awkward. I know I ought to ask you to go in and join Marcia, but...
Oh, you needn't apologize, Mr. White. I know she doesn't want company. She'll be leaning forward with her elbows on the box rail, just as she always does. She isn't merely watching a play. She's acting Lady Macbeth. Every line, every gesture. And I don't mean to disturb her.
You won't leave this door, either of you.
You trust me, sir. If... no.
Anything wrong, Bradley?
It is a very rummy-looking cove coming along the passage, sir, wearing a big black cloak with a red lining.
Oh, that man, Bradley. That's only Herr von Arnheim. He's a professional magician and escape artist. I was just wondering... Excuse me.
Don't worry, Mr. White. We'll look after her.
Von Arnheim. I say Von Arnheim.
Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake the gory locks at me.
I beg your pardon?
And I beg yours, my friend. I was merely quoting a line from the play. You are not leaving the theater. Surely not walking out on Macbeth.
I'm afraid I have got to.
Oh, that's a pity, my friend. You will miss some of my best effects, to say nothing of Shakespeare's. When Banquo's ghost appears at the table.
I don't want to hear any more about ghosts, thanks. Banquo's or anybody else's.
I imagine you mean your wife's late husband.
You've heard about it, then?
Yes, your wife has told me a good deal. She seems to think that in my profession I might have some charm over demons or spell against ghosts.
You know, Von Arnheim, in a muddled kind of way, that's what I've been wondering myself.
Unfortunately, no. I am all too human. But your problem interests me. And I confess it worries me.
Worries you? What about me?
As I understand it, her first husband was a half-mad American actor who later went completely mad and died in New York. His, what's the word I want?
Or obsession?
That's it, obsession. His obsession was Marcia Blair's eyes.
Yes, always her eyes. They seemed to hypnotize him.
It is not new, you know. You'll find the same motive, the eyes of a beautiful woman, all through the works of Edgar Allan Poe. Then, as I understand it, after this man's death, she began to receive a series of letters.
Foul letters.
Apparently written by him, and threatening her with some rather horrible form of death if she married you.
I tell you, Barry Lake is dead. He can't get up out of his coffin.
Oh, getting out of coffins, my friend, is not so difficult. I have done it myself.
Oh, please stop joking, Von Arnheim. You don't happen to be dead.
True. There is that small difference. Is your wife here in the theater tonight?
Yes. She wouldn't have come here except that it's Marion Willard's first night. And we haven't seen Marion, either of us, in years. She's back there in Box D.
So I hear. I was hoping that you might invite me to share the box.
Look here, old man.
I don't want to seem inhospitable, but she doesn't want company? Well, that's about it. Well, then walk back a little distance with me, this way, so that we can see the stage from the back of the dress circle. Now, the orchestra has stopped, and they'll ring up in a moment. There. Look at it.
Look at what?
The stage, man. The lights have gone out. All except the dim yellow footlights shining at the curtain. The last cough, the last murmur, the last rustle of program dies away in one vast, breathing hush. The curtain goes up.
Let go of my arm, Von Arnheim. I've got to leave.
Now, what are the stage directions? A desert place, thunder and lightning. Enter 3 witches. When, indeed, I wonder.
I beg your pardon, Von Arnheim. Do you speak?
No, it was nothing.
London newspapers for that year 1936, you may read how Myron Willard triumphed at Drury Lane as Macbeth. But tonight, as the clock ticks on, there is another drama in the dimly lighted corridor outside Box D. There sits Miss Louise Fenton, Marcia Blair's companion secretary. Beside her, burly and broken-nosed, is big Jim Bradley, the ex-wrestler. And when more than half an hour has passed...
There's the applause, Jim. That must be the end of the first act.
Yes, I hear it. Nothing's happened. But take my word for it, nothing's going to happen.
Oh, she's such a likable person, Jim. And I think one of our greatest Shakespearean actresses.
Well, I don't much care for this Shakespeare business, miss. You give me a good movie with gangsters in it. That's my style.
Oh, you don't understand, Jim. I've seen her as Juliet, as Rosalind, as Portia, in our own drawing room without any props. I've heard her as Lady Macbeth, too. You should see her eyes.
Her eyes, miss?
Yes, you should see her eyes when she delivers that speech. The raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance.
Hey, miss, look there.
What is it?
That foreign-looking cove in the black cape coming along the passage now. Easy.
I beg your pardon. You are Miss Louise Fenton, aren't you?
Yes, my name is Fenton. What is it?
I am Ludwig von Arnheim, a friend of Mr. White's. And I must see Marcia Blair at once.
No, you don't, Governor. You're not going in there.
Why not?
Because nobody goes in there. Not if it was the king himself. That's orders.
Now, listen to me, both of you. When the lights went on, I happened to be looking at Box D from the other side of the theater. And I think there is something wrong.
But there can't be anything wrong. Jim Bradley and I have been sitting here the whole time. Except, of course...
Except when?
Well, except when I went in there for a few seconds.
You went in there, Miss Fenton? May I ask when that was?
Well, it was after Mr. White had gone and just before the play started. I went in to ask if she wanted anything. She said she didn't, so I came out again. And Bradley's been with me all the time, except when he went to get a drink of water up the corridor.
That's as true as gospel, Governor.
One moment, and listen to me. Marcia Blair is leaning forward across the railing of the box.
Oh, but that's nothing, Herr von Arnheim. That's the way she always is.
Does she always fall forward with her arms held straight out and her head down on her arms?
Better be careful, miss. It's a trick.
Trick? Why not open the door and see for yourselves? Would that do any harm?
No, I suppose it wouldn't, but... Oh, there must be some mistake. We haven't heard a sound from in there. There couldn't be anything wrong.
You open the door, Miss Fenton. I'm going to hold tight to this gentleman, just in case.
Quiet, please. Quiet.
What is it, miss?
Walk in there with me, both of you. Please go casually, as though nothing were wrong. We don't want to attract attention. Now.
Oh, Herr von Arnheim. There's blood all over her face.
Yes. And don't begin screaming again, Miss Fenton, when I tell you she's dead. Bradley?
Yes, sir?
Pick Miss Blair's body up and carry her out into the corridor. In another minute, we'll have the whole theater wanting to know what's wrong.
All right, sir. You win. But what about the people in the other boxes? Won't they see?
They've gone down to the bar to get a drink. They won't see anything. Hurry.
She ain't no lightweight, the poor lady ain't. Steady does it. Hold the door open. That's got it. Now, close the door. Shall I put her down on the floor, Governor?
Yes, better do that.
I never took those threats seriously. That's what I blame myself for. And if something did happen, well, I thought he'd attack her. I never thought he'd hide away across the theater and fire a shot.
And you were quite right, Miss Fenton. Marcia Blair was not shot.
She wasn't shot.
No, take a look at the wound.
Oh, I can't look at it.
She was stabbed. Stabbed through the right eye with a narrow, sharp blade, which entered her brain and killed her instantly. Not a pretty death, but a quick one.
You seem to know a lot about this, Governor.
Perhaps I do, my friend, and perhaps I can guess a lot more.
You mean somebody stood out there and threw a knife at her? Like a ruddy music hall turn?
No, I don't mean that either. There's no knife in the wound and none in the box. The murderer took it away.
Took it away?
Exactly.
Herr von Arnheim, please wait. You're not saying someone climbed up from outside, 20 or 30 feet from the floor, and stabbed poor Marcia in full sight of 3,000 people?
That, Miss Fenton, is what the evidence seems to indicate.
But it's impossible.
Yet it happened. There is Marcia Blair's body.
What's that?
Oh, it's the warning bell for the second act. People will be coming back here any minute. What are we going to do?
Applause, acclaim, triumph. Myron Willard as Macbeth. Helen Gale as Lady Macbeth. Magical effects by Ludwig van Arnheim. Very few persons knew that there is a dead woman in the theater. But at the end of the play, it is a different story. The crowd files out, past a cordon of police. The lights are extinguished. The great theater is dark and mumbling with echoes. See the stage now. Only the battens or overhead lights pour down a pale blaze on two men who stand grotesquely against the background of Dunsinane Castle. One of these men is Howard White, very near collapse. The other is Myron Willard himself, still wearing his makeup, still wearing helmet and chain mail. And when Willard speaks...
Howard! Howard White! Confounded man, can't you hear what I'm saying?
Excuse me, madam. This is almost finished.
Oh, not that I'm blaming you, old man.
Thank you, madam.
It's traditional, you know, that Macbeth's an unlucky play. But up to the very end, I thought I'd never done better. 11 curtain calls. No, 12. How did you like my tomorrow and tomorrow speech?
I'm sorry, madam. I'm afraid I didn't hear it.
Yes, poor old Marcia. She'd have hated to die like that. Marcia was proud of her eyes. Always nearsighted as an owl, but too vain to wear glasses. There's Van Arnheim looking at us from under the castle archway. Van Arnheim!
Did you call me, my friend? You're rather difficult to recognize under all that Macbeth makeup.
Yes, I was just thinking the same thing.
Never mind that. Where are the police now?
At the moment, Mr. Willard, the police are in your dressing room. They are using it for questioning.
No reception tonight, of course.
No, but I thought you might be interested in 2 items of information that police have just discovered.
Well, go on.
We had a fairly full house tonight, I believe.
Fairly full. Every seat was reserved.
Reserved, yes, but not occupied.
I don't follow you.
1 box on the ground floor, box E to be exact, was empty. Reserved and paid for, but empty. And box E, oddly enough, was just underneath the one occupied by Marcia Blair.
Well, all the same, I still don't see quite what you're...
Now, our next item of information comes from an usher. An outside eye seat in the stores, very close to that empty box, was occupied by a very curious stranger who arrived late in the dark and slipped out again by a nearby exit a few minutes afterwards.
Just 1 moment, Van Arnheim. Are you saying the stranger climbed up and attacked Marcia in full view of the audience?
No, my friend. The murderer did not approach from that direction.
Then he must have reached Marcia through the door, guarded by Bradley and Miss Fenton?
No, not from that direction either.
Confound it, man. It must have been one way or the other.
Not necessarily.
Tell me, Howard, don't you think I've got enough troubles already without this nightmare on top of it?
Herr von Arnheim. Herr von Arnheim.
You must take it easy, Miss Fenton. You must not excite yourself. Have the police
Yes.
been...
Look, you've got to help me. They won't believe me.
They won't believe the young lady, sir, and that's a fact. I've tried to help her all I can, but there's things I can swear to and things I can't.
You see, I did go into that box. Oh, just for a couple of seconds, I admit it. But no other person went in or could have got in. So they say, or at least they're hinting that I killed her. But I swear I never touched her.
Who was questioning you, Miss Fenton? Inspector Grimes or Sergeant Blake?
I'm not sure. The sergeant, I think.
Then I shouldn't worry if I were you. Inspector Grimes knows better. He's guessed, in fact, exactly what I have guessed.
You seem on rather familiar terms with the police, my friend.
I am, Mr. Willard. I am. Anyone who practices escapes from handcuffs, sacks, chests...
And stage boxes, perhaps.
Stage boxes, if you insist. Excuse me. Isn't that Inspector Grimes in the wings now?
Yes, and he's nodding his head.
Then I can tell you, I think, what you want to know.
Well, if you do happen to know anything, it's your duty to speak up. Poor Marcia seems to have had some ridiculous idea that her former husband, Barry Lake, was still alive. Her fears weren't justified, of course, and she wasn't killed by any dead husband.
I beg your pardon. Her fears were justified, though not quite in the way she believed. And she was killed by her husband.
Then Barry Lake is still alive.
No, Barry Lake is dead.
You don't mean Marcia was really killed by a ghost?
No. I mean she was killed by her devoted second husband, Mr. Howard White.
Here, stop it. You hear what they say? That's not true. It's a slanderous statement. I'll have you in court for it. Everybody knows how devoted I was to Marcia.
Your devotion, my friend, was devotion to her money. And your business affairs have been shaky for a long time.
That's not true, and you can't prove it.
Marcia Blair was inclined to be, shall we say, a little close-fisted with money.
That's true anyway.
It's a lie.
Willing to marry him, but Mr. Howard White knew he'd never touch a penny unless he killed her. He wrote the letters himself.
Herr von Arnheim, he can't be guilty. She was alive after he left the box. He wasn't anywhere near her when she died.
Perfectly correct, Miss Fenton.
He wasn't there, and yet he killed her.
Exactly. But you and Bradley can supply the clue that will hang him.
Me, sir? I don't know nothing.
No, I don't either.
I think you do if you'll put your mind to it. Do you remember what Howard White said to her just before he left the box?
Yes, he said, "Good night, Marcia. See you in an hour or two." And she answered, "Good night and good luck."
No, I mean just before that.
There wasn't anything.
You see? It's a slanderous statement without any proof. It's an insult to my position on the stock exchange.
Wait. I do remember something rather queer.
Think, Miss Fenton, think.
He said to Marcia jokingly, "If you'll accept these, madam, in honor of our first anniversary." And Marcia said, "Howard, they're lovely. Of course I'll accept them."
That's right, sir. He did say it.
And what do you think he was referring to, Miss Fenton? What was he asking her to accept?
Well, I imagined it was flowers, a corsage or something like that.
Did you see any flowers in the box or pinned to Marcia Blair's gown?
No. Now, come to think of it, I didn't.
Then what did he give her?
Don't look at me, sir.
Now, here is a woman who is very nearsighted, yet refuses to wear glasses. But she can accept a pair of...
Opera glasses.
It's a lie. You can't prove it.
Hold on, sir.
Let go.
You better stay here, Governor.
Thank you, Bradley, but the place is surrounded with police.
But I still don't understand.
Now, what happens when you lift opera glasses to your eyes and they are not in focus? You turn the little wheel in the middle to bring them into focus. For Marcia Blair, it was deadly.
You mean the glasses had...
Yes, they were specially constructed glasses, Miss Fenton. They were invented by a French criminal years ago. That little wheel is a little trigger. It releases the spring of a sharp, thin blade which strikes through the eyes into the brain.
Oh, don't, please.
You can't prove it.
Marcia Blair died instantly. The glasses torn from her eye by their own weight dropped over the box rail to the carpeted aisle below. The only witnesses who might have noticed would have been the people in the box just underneath.
And that box was empty.
By arrangement, yes. Even if anybody did see them fall, Howard White was prepared to remove the evidence instantly. You haven't forgotten the curious stranger.
Curious stranger?
I mean, the man who slipped in after it was dark, took an aisle seat just under the box, and slipped out again a few minutes later.
It's a pack of lies from start to finish. You can't prove a word of it.
I beg your pardon, my friend. Didn't you see Inspector Grimes nod to me a moment ago?
Well...
You are going to hang, my friend, for one of the neatest and cruelest crimes in my experience. The police have just found those opera glasses with a neat set of fingerprints in the side pocket of your motor car.
And so ends Fire Burn and Cauldron Bubble, starring the distinguished actor Paul Lucas. Tonight's tale of suspense. This is your narrator, Ted Osborne, the man in black, who conveys to you Columbia's invitation to spend this half hour in suspense with us again next Tuesday, same time, when Nancy Coleman stars in Fear Paints a Picture. William Spear, the producer, John Dietz, the director, Bernard Herrmann, the composer-conductor, Robert Salmon, studio technician, and John Dickson Carr, the author, collaborated on tonight's Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.